I guess actually, I don't actually need to share my whole screen. I can actually just do just the setting itself. Just the display capture. No, game capture. Yeah, I usually do, but I haven't streamed for a hot minute. Something like that, please. Be good. Usually games like Subnautica, bit of Minecraft that I feel like it. Scrap Mechanic, I do that too. I haven't done it for a hot minute though. Why aren't you... Application... windowed capture, I guess it would be. Yeah, there it is. Where's paint? Paint, Starry. There she is. It would be good if they could actually see. Hello? Like, why aren't you... Why can't they... Why is paint.net being silly? Wait, do you see that? It's like nothing. Say if I was to do a... display capture instead, hypothetically speaking, and go that. Could you... Yeah, you see that now. Okay, I just don't know why it wasn't done with the other one. Right, delete. Technical difficulties. Chat. What? Blah 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 blah. Blah 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 blah. There she is. ABU Tails. ABU. I also say ABU. Which face? Yeah, wait, whose bird just squeaked in the background? Oh, hey. Bird. I think you're both... Well, yes, because they're just a little puppy. They're just a dumb little puppy, though. Alright. See, look. Hold on. You ready? Hey, princess. Princey Suggy. Who's a good girl. Yeah, they do have noses. They do have noses. Hey Google, can birds smell? Yes. The sniff test. They have passed... Yeah, they actually, if you look carefully on the beak, they do, most birds, well, I believe most birds, because I know, budgies do, they have little tiny noses. Hey Google, shut up! Mm-hmm. Is that say little pup? Definitely not me and, definitely not me and, little princess. Little puppy, dumb little puppy. Not possible. Boss baby. Yeah, the boss baby. It's a. Why? It will be slop for me to later. Yes. Bah. Honestly, I need to tell my I need to tell my caregiver slash daddy. Cook took the Chocky. I told my caregiver slash daddy first that I bought myself the special chocolate, and I just told him that I took some of the Chocky. He's the one that actually made me like actually think about it. I was like thinking like I was thinking about it. He's like, why don't you do it? I'm like, fuck off. Desires. Or desire. Yeah, being loved slash being taken care of, because I want to actually be changed. I want to have someone to changes me. I want someone to give me changes. Me too. Diapers for everyone. Diapers for everyone. I had a friend I had someone that wanted to buy my used diapers. But he was in America, so like sadly. Yeah, I had some like used ones, like all the wet ones. He's like, if you live closer. I want to do some humpies with some. I mean, what? Nothing. All right. I would buy all the diapers for everyone. Yes, the sign's literally me with like a Ferrari. No, I'm kidding. I'll be better PC. I have 2 left of the Kushis. One's left. I have, yeah, 2 Kushis left, I believe. Yeah, the like the one that actually feels and looks like a baby diaper. So what's the little puppy doing anyway? Oh yeah, someone. Mm-hmm. I think it's supposed to be there because of blah 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 blah. Blah. Mm-hmm. Blah. Uh-huh. Blah blah blah. 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 What? What? Don't mind me just accidentally choking on my pussy. I know one of my cousins have he's gay, but he also likes feet. I didn't say anything about butt. Yeah, I don't know why I said it like that, but he also has a foot. I don't know. I'm getting blue wheel. I got a blue wheel of death for a second. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Never tried it. I want to try everything at least once. Oh really, Bird? Fuck. Okay, that answered. I might be a fat bitch. I don't know about the fart part. Whereabouts did you post this? I want to have a look. We could always just pop into the not safe for work chat. Where did you put it? Where did you put the... Where's the video? Where did they put the video? I didn't reply to anything to that about all. Yes, very cute. Would put my face in snoof. If someone, yeah, I also am like I've actually had a couple of people that like told me like not to like pee yet, and I've done it, and it was like, but it was kind of hot. That was. You know, like, I remember one of my caregivers told me to, like, hold it in as long as I can. I had to beg and beg for them. Yeah. Send them in DM, I guess, if you want. You look like a happy princess, by the way, when I was like looking at the video. Who's a good little princess? Who's such a good girl? I'm so proud of you, princess. Yeah, I agree with the the pants. I thought something was a buzzy for a second, but it was just your PowerPoint thing. I thought I saw a buzzy just on the floor, but I'm like, no, it's a PowerPoint. Oh, who's a sleepy little puppy? Where? I saw another video and it's very, very cute. It's like a bungalow. Not fully. I got semi-half-ass. It's kind of hard to like shave like my back and my butt area. I've tried my best. It's just kind of I've never really probably learned how to shave. I've just kind of my sister had to show me. It was on my face, so the rest I've just kind of done. Yeah. I'm just scrolling up. The one couple. Hold on. There's like one you showed tonight. Yes, please, just please do it. That's what I'm gonna do. Say, yes, please do it. There's a video that. Never. We know. Please don't accidentally sit on my face. That'll be disgusting. Please don't. Yeah. Actually, you know what? Fuck, hold on. I don't know if I end up sending that, but I have a video similar to that. Let me post it then. Let me get my phone out. Let me dust my photos off. Oh, where is it? Drawings, me in the train, me waiting, my family. About yes. I have to figure out which video it actually is first. It's not that bad. It's not as bad as you think it is. There like, yeah. Like, you'll get the casual, like, house spider, but that's about it, like, where I live there. Hopefully I posted the right one. Yeah, pretty much like that. There's also, we have daddy long legs occasionally. I know depends on what house it is. Like, my dad had a more older house, and it was a lot more spiders, yes. There it is. There's the video. Hopefully it's the right one. Oh, hi. Hi, Becky. That's good. Hold on 1 second, guys. I am going good. I actually just chilling, doing some drawing for a friend. Well, it's a thinner commission. Like a random commission I wanted to do for them. Like, it's not paid. It's just some random one. You know what I'm trying to say? But yeah, I didn't realize you were going to join my stream. But hi. I'm experimenting with some special chocolate. I am. It's a matter of just when it will happen. Hello there, guys. I'm back again. I was just quickly talking to a friend. Yeah. And like, I know it's like not most people's thing, but like it's not the high kind of one. But holy fuck, it's making me thirsty. You okay there, Princess Super Soccer? Soccer? But yeah, Oh, come on, Telegram, I don't want you up. Where did the browser go? Thank you. Yes, Princess Super Soka, you're a very adorable princess. And I'll definitely pat your butt. Pat. Who's that good little girl? I'm so proud. So, what have you been up to, Becky, Hun? I don't know why I called you Hun, but yeah, I'm currently being small and padded with a couple of my friends in the group chat right now. Hold on, let me, Sorry, I was kind of just zoning out looking at Discord. But this is what it's going to be look like so far, kind of. It's going to be more mixed in. But I'm basing it off this. This is there for Sona. Very, very adorable being. Well, it's okay. Accents happen, little one. Yeah. Also, I'm currently doing like a couple others in the time. Like I'm like also doing like Hold on, I need to turn off the eye. Maybe me. It was maybe me. I sent that. I mean, what? Nothing. Oh, goodbye, Fanta. Yeah, it's not right now, but it was like when I went on my trip to the funeral for my nan. It's okay. Well, I was gonna say it's okay, but it's not really. But you know what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Yeah, it was cancer for my nan too. Can I stop choking? Throat white. I guess something's happening. It's making me fucking really thirsty. Yeah, for some reason it's making me like the chocolate is making me thirsty at least, I guess. So I guess something's working. Oh, brother. But yeah, I can show you another artwork I did, Becky. So I'm talking to a person on my stream. One of my VR, not VR sisters, my Facebook sisters, I guess. I drew this for a friend yesterday and it took 2 days. No, not that kind of chocolate. Not that kind of chocolate, Becky, the... different other kind of chocolate, you're closed. Oh no, don't close it, thank you, God man. But yeah, I officially actually got affiliate, because last time you actually saw my stream, Becky. Oh, hold on, let me mute, sorry. But yeah, no, not the high kind. The, something else kind. The one that might make me stinky. We'll say that. The what? The what? Was it with the one? Was it? Wait, hold on. I think I said. Oh, how do you get that then? Rolls. Oh yeah, the extreme, yeah. Cause I saw something like that was like I don't know. Yeah, that kind of chocolatey. Oh, so now I believe I can put it in that chat after it takes its toll. Should I be able to put it in that chat? I'm guessing. All right. But I did. Yeah, hold on. Where the fuck did my pen just go? I did see something. Hold on. Oh, come on. It was like. Hold on. Where is it? Yeah, it was this. Like, when you said that, I thought you meant this. I thought you meant this. Cause that's just something. Yeah, I'll probably have a look properly later on. Alright, so how are the eyes done? Alright, so it kind of goes like about the halfway point-ish. Ba-ba-ba? Ba-ba-ba-ba? 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 Abba. So yeah, how's the weather been, Becky? If you're still on my stream. Yeah, it's been like a hot minute since you've joined my stream, eh? Actually, let me go. Okay, so it won't track me. Oh no. Where are you, Becca? I haven't messaged. Yeah, I'm sorry, I haven't messaged a lot on Becky. Huh, why can't I see you on... Yeah, it's been a bit warm here. Where are you, Becky? Oh, hold on. Is it that one? Okay, just your profile picture looked different for a second. Yeah, that was earlier today. I took that. I got told to take them, but then changing to my other onesie. Yeah. Yeah, so I haven't been talking on much on Facebook. I remember, oh, hold on, let me figure out her name. Not Becky, Brookie Lynn? That one? Brookin? I'm not, yeah. They were checking up on me a couple of days ago. Hold on, let me try to find something. Come on. Oh, hello there! So with your avatar, I've got good news. Hold on. Oh, it's stomach. Not stomach, acid reflux. I had to redo it again, and remember how I said I tried to go back to your original one I started? For some reason, that's completely scuffed. But what I did differently or changed, but it's worked, and so I'm going to leave it on the second version, the V2 model, but still everything's the same. I've actually because it'll be fine if you upload it to PC, but as soon as you try to upload it to Quest, it bugs out on the other one for some reason. I'm just trying to find something there. No fucking, come on. So yeah, Becky, these ones were after like 14 hours, roughly. But what I sent you is about after 14 hours. And you okay there, little pup? You okay there, little pup? Tickle, 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 tickle. Abba. Yeah. Good pup. Good pup. You're both adorable. And, yeah, you're both adorable too on stream. Virtual pets. So, yeah, hold on, how is the stream looking on? Okay, well, no wonder you can't see the chat. Hold on, let me just, hold on. That's what it should be seeing. That's what you should be seeing, guys. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. Okay, that's what you should be seeing, and, hold on. What, huh? Why? Okay, hold on. More technical difficulties. Hold on, just breaking stuff. Don't mind me. Just as you do. Hold on, where is it? Where's window? Where's the window tab? Hold on. I swear I'm a trained professional sometimes. Sogging my pants. Yeah. Oh, I wish I wasn't potty trained. And let me do, hold on, let me do that. Sorry, technical difficulty, guys, just being a little janky. Give me a second. Automatic, that one. Yep. Yeah, it's not good, yeah. Okay, Gooba. Yeah. So how you two going anyway, Ashley and, Becky? You too, Gooba. Don't sub the bed too much, or do. No, it'll be cute if they would have to beg, though. Maybe they could... Yeah, have a good time, G. Hold on, let me, hey, Puppy, in a second, check your DMs, Hold on, what's that? Hold on, you are so much more cute. Oh, what are you again, Gay Mexican? Who? Wait, hon. I think I know. Is that you? Fuck. Who are you? I think I know. Ah, fuck. Mental blank for a second. Hold on. Hold on. I'm not sure. Hold on, just quickly tell my this group chat that I'm live. How that. I'm live, yes. They cannot see or hear you at all, though. Yeah, I know. Don't worry, yes, because I was gonna stream my I was gonna do my screen, but I'm like, no, I'm gonna do it to only the app, only. It's okay. Everyone know. Like, I literally put like my thing is ABDL stuff. Like, yeah. Oh, hi Goosebumps. Sorry, yeah. I just didn't know if you were that or one other friend. That's sort of my girlfriend. Pardon, what was that? Sorry, my brain just disconnected. I was also like, talking to people. Why am I so thirsty? Well, drink some water then. Also, hydrate everyone. This is a reminder to hydrate. Yes. Why? Huh? Oh, hold on. That makes sense. Hold on. I was getting confused for a second. Oh, nice. No, not you, Goosebumps. Just I had a friend that is Mexican, and I just didn't know if it was their username or not. Hmm. Mm-hmm. The eyes. Is that the eyes? Is that the eye color? Hold on. I'm stuffing up stuff. Hold on. Not really, cause it's a group chat, and it's just I don't know fully. Hold on. I need to turn that down a little bit, and then select. I need to set up the button to auto select the same color. Hold on. Yeah. How are you others if there's anyone else on who's actually how many people? I don't know exactly who's watching my stream right now. You're all adorable puppies and kitties and whatnot. Yeah. Yeah. Or rabbits. Not doing too bad, Goosebumps. Just been vibing, to be honest. Trying to stay out of trouble, you know. Is that a so little one? Yeah, couldn't be at you. Why? Why? Poops, poops, poop, poop, poops. You know what? Hold on. Oh, wrong thing to select on. Hold on. Slash nugget. Hold on. No, exclamation mark. Nugget at Batty Bat there. Hopefully that, yes, okay. There you go. Have some Dino Nuggies, Becky. Not so shit. Nom. But yeah, if you want to watch my stream, it's the same as my username. Uh-oh. Thank you, Paint.net for not crashing on me. Nuggies, num. Yes. Also, I believe we have Hug. Exclamation mark Hug and then the username, and I think Chaos, Tease, and Bully, I think, or something. Hugs, yes, hugs. Oh, can my pen stop having? I need to move my pen away. I just need to tighten that curve up. Oh, back a bit. Actually, back. Thank you. I am so sweaty for some reason. My arm is sweating. Oh, I don't think that is. Hold on, it's like slash. Hold on. Hug at. Baby. Let's see if that works. Yeah, I have to do hug. Hold on. Exclamation mark. Help? Question mark. Exclamation mark. List. Slash. Hold on. Slash list. Never mind. Apparently, I don't know how my chat works. Now, smudge tool, please. Into the bean. Oh, that's too much zoomed in, mate. Change the size, please, of the pen. No, baby. Yes. 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 And a little puppy too. In there too. A little tiny puppy. If... Yeah. No, adorable. Yep. It's okay. It's a baby thing not to be able to speak. Okay. You too. Yes. Have a good time. Oh, the way I did it makes their eyes look like they're on fire. Like they're like full of rage. Oh, and it should update in a second there, yeah. Alright, so their eyes are kind of done. I just need to do the rest of the body now, kind of, I guess. I'm not trying to unlock you, phone. I'll put you away there. Stop trying to... Abba. Is that so little one? Abba? Oh, pat your head. How's your trip with your caregiver going? Actually, yeah, I actually need I won't fully do that, but I can do... I actually need to go to the top layer and make it everything more thicker, but I have to do like size 4. 3, I mean. That's good. I'm guessing you're enjoying it. Pen, stop having a mental breakdown on me. Oh, sorry for the bright screen. That's good. But yeah, I'm doing this for a friend that they just want, like, they were like, talking to a group chat. I'm like, hey, I'm still learning how to draw. Can I draw yours? And blah, blah. I'm like, yeah. And yeah. Actually, yeah, that reminds me. I need to quickly do some stuff in WPlace. Black color, please. Thank you. Give me like 5 minutes, guys. Sorry about that. What color is this again? Yeah, my friend has been popping off. Popping me. that's at least a bit done now. I can go back to the drawing. There it is. Giggles, boop, boop, boops. Yeah, I'm gonna do like they're on a change in mat or something. Actually, you know what, hon, let me go to my hon. Actually, hon is okay. Oh, little puppy's asleep. Oh, getting a little eepy. You okay, there, little princess? You're lucky you were falling asleep just a second ago. Let me go here. Where am I? Where am I? Come on, opera. Aw, then why don't you head to bed, little pup?
Example was after this guy's wife had broken down crying in our third session about how he talked down to her. I asked them both about what some goals for therapy might be. His immediate response was, I want to work on understanding why my wife makes such stupid frickin' decisions. She broke down crying again and ran out of the room. The guy just looked at me like, women, am I right? He had no idea what he said was hurtful, or he wanted to hurt her. Either way, it was chilling to watch. Spoiler alert, she left him 2 weeks later, after he threatened to shoot her if she left him. Yes, she's safe and much better off now.
Hi, kitty. You scare me.
Honestly, he made me feel scared and panicky to be in the same room as him. Part of
My
being a
cat's
therapist
scared.
is you build a very strong client-therapist bond, and there's a lot of empathy/openness in the room, so things can get quite intense and emotional in a good way. With this guy, I felt like a tiny, trapped little animal in the room with a dangerous predator. He had no remorse for his actions. He would slip in remarks meant to impress/threaten, then look somewhat annoyed when I did not react. I was reacting inside. I do not fully recall his name/looks and wouldn't on here anyway. But on the outside, he looked totally normal and actually seemed kind of okay. But after talking to him for a while, there was this emptiness that I found quite disturbing. He casually admitted to domestic abuse in the same way someone would admit they left the hall light on by accident. To me, in front of his partner. He had never brought it up before, and as a trainee, I should not have been working with the DV cases. They would be triaged and referred to someone with specialist experience. I can't go into details, obviously, for confidentiality reasons, but it was a huge overreaction to an honest accident. Could have happened to anyone. And he literally mentioned it in passing, and seemed to be more like, oh, for God's sake, this isn't even worth mentioning. Why did I bring this up? I'd rather be talking about myself. Rather than try to strangle my partner,
kind of not really too late.
Didn't care. I remember just nodding and remaining calm, whilst drawing a huge freaking exclamation mark on my notes. I made it through the session somehow, then immediately told my supervisor and had him transferred to a different counselor. I've honestly never been so scared of another individual just from a vibe. This is a super severe lack of self-awareness that I am always afraid of people having.
Yeah, make sure
everyone
make sure you get some
you know what you're doing wrong, fix it. It's no. They actually have no clue what they're doing wrong. Well, now that I think about it, that's this whole thread. But, like, still, this is spooky stuff. People who watch security cameras for a living. What creepy things have you tried to forget? Story 1. Worked as a harbor master a while ago. Had to check the marina's cameras after a boat was abandoned at our docks. I was looking for the owner. I looked on the tape from the boat's first night in the marina.
What do you guys
the man
think?
Sailed
Like,
the boat
do you
in
like
was
her?
standing on the end
I'm
of his
trying
boat
my
for 2
best.
hours, barely moving. Then at 1:30 a.m., he just walked off the back and dropped into the water. He never came back up. Never found his body. Freaky. We now have a Discord.
Yeah.
Check out the server in the link in the description.
But do you hear like a voice in the
background?
background?
Housing and support for homeless people. A large proportion also had mental health issues, so there was a fair amount of interesting events that happened. Being in IT, I avoided experiencing most of it firsthand, though I was threatened with being stabbed on about my 3rd day. Anyway, I come in one Monday, and there's an email labeled urgent. It says that there was an incident in the stairwell of one of our properties on Sunday night, and could I pull the relevant CCTV footage and put it on DVD? I had to do this quite frequently. I skip through the footage, find the incident, usually a fight or blatant drug dealing, and burn it to DVD for the police. The email never mentioned what the incident was.
You're opening another tab?
The footage and watch as a clearly very agitated man ties a rope around a stair rail at the top of the stairs, then his neck. He looks over the rail and then just casually tips forward over it. The rope flipped him round and he dangled there, twitching for far too long before he just stopped. So yeah, that was a fun Monday. Story 3. Wasn't a security officer, but I worked at a 24/7 gas station for a while. One night, my coworker accidentally unalived himself while at work.
More tabs!
For the sake of watching the footage. He went to the store with a bag of drugs, probably coke, snorted it, and started acting funny for about 10 minutes. He then sits in the back office and gets fidgety / thrashing around.
I got chalky milk instead.
He had died of a heart attack and sat there for 5 hours before anyone came in. Thought the absence of
No
tab.
tab.
Called the cops. It was really weird seeing people come in and act all upset for the lack of service. They just leave thinking someone was lazy. But nah, dude was dead. Story 4. Was watching CCTV footage of a parking deck. And on the 9th level, there's this guy sitting in the middle of the deck, banging his head into one of the pillars. All of a sudden, the guy just stops and runs over the edge. Without stopping or jumping, he flings himself over. I immediately called dispatch and told them what had happened. A few days later, I was offered counseling for those events. Story 5. I work in a retail store, and for a while I worked security here. Watching the security cameras wasn't technically my job, but we were consistently short-handed in that
tabs.
The manager was grooming me for watch the cameras occasionally. One day when we were reviewing footage from overnights, we saw this teenager calmly set down his shopping basket, take off his hat and glasses, and just charge at a wall, hit it head on. He did this 2 more times. When he was done, his face was a bloody mess, and he just put his hat and glasses back on and left. Weirded me right the hell out. This sounds like one absurdly troubled teen. I hope they manage to find some help, or, admittedly at the very least, not graduated onto hurting other people rather than themselves. Story 6. Was a security coordinator for a large electrical company and had access to like 80+ facilities CCTV infrastructures. Was doing maintenance check on some random train station at like 3 a.m. and a camera as far to the right as possible to check that it was functioning. And this dude was on all fours eating a deer in the middle of the tracks. Watched him for like 10 minutes.
I guess I'm not gonna get chat for now.
When I came back,
I have to use my
the dude was gone, rewound it, and the dude stopped munching on the carcass, wiped the gore off his face, and walked into the woods like he didn't have a care in the world. Edit. Read all the comments, and the most asked questions and their answers are here. Where did this happen? Iowa.
Hi.
Did you just stand there like an idiot? Was late at night in the middle of a long shift. Also didn't really process what the hell was happening. Kind of forgot I had someone else in the office that could come over and see what was going on. What was he wearing? Was kind of hard to tell, as the CCTV was basically filming at the end of its effective view. Looked like he was wearing some kind of heavy outerwear, like something you would work outside in the winter with. It was late fall, so nights would dip into the 30s. Story 7.
Okay, so it's the video. Okay, good.
Used to work loss prevention for a big box store. We had a lady get arrested for public
I can't
indecency,
access
and I
my
was asked
chat
to
for some reason.
investigate.
The
I had to follow
restream
her
thing I'm
backwards
using
from the
is
point of arrest, and
logged
it was
me
a
out.
trip, to say the least.
Well,
She arrived
anyway,
at the store
I'll be back
swerving and
quick.
nearly
Just
hitting
quick little
several cars.
break. I'll
She
take potty
entered the
break.
store with 2
I'm gonna
young
fill up some of my
children, both
water
of
and
whom
make
are
sure I
mentally
don't bring my
handicapped.
headset 'cause I'm
That
not
lady
not
literally
like-
dragged those kids around the store, slapping them and tugging at their ears / collars if they didn't obey. At some point, she just abandons them in the clothing section, walks through the back doors to the break area, and I'm assuming she thought it was the bathroom because she proceeds to pull down her pants and craps all over the fire exit door. She pulls her pants up, without wiping, mind you, and goes back to the floor like nothing happened. Someone saw what she did and followed her. Luckily, there's an officer in the store at the time and quickly approaches her when the associate tells him what she did. Needless to say, she was definitely high and/or drunk and was arrested. The scary part is, she did not mention those kids one time. It wasn't until I reviewed the tape that I saw that they were still waiting by the shopping cart, completely oblivious and afraid to move. Child Services was later called, and I still think about those kids often. It breaks my heart to think about the BS those kids must still be going through. Story 8. I used to do asset production for a Walmart in a very heroin-addicted area. The creepiest thing was seeing how fast someone would go from completely normal to completely out of it in the span of a year because of the drug. You could build a timeline of their demise through CCTV pictures and video.
Yeah, have a stretch
in particular really stood out to me. The first time I apprehended him, he was very polite and intelligent, just stealing to get his fix. A year later, and the 4th time I caught him, he was basically a shell of a man. He tried running from me, and I looked him right in the eyes and said, "Look, I know you, Gary last name. Please don't run." The look on his face of someone knowing him
still have
couldn't
no
even
feeling
remember
yet
will
that's
always
happened.
stay with me. Story 9. I
I
used to
think.
do IT support for a company
That was
had
my
a
knee
lot
just
of heavy
cracked.
machinery
My
moving
knee just
around inside
cracked
a
just
big
then, just,
warehouse
like,
type
crunk.
area. This
knee
giant
just went
front-end
crunch.
loader would scoop up material and dump it into a hopper. Along the sides of the floor were these huge concrete barriers. I've heard them called Jersey barriers and mafia blocks, but they are about 10 feet tall. And this one guy's life was ended when the front-end loader inadvertently scooped the base of the barrier and landed on one of the two guys walking shoulder to shoulder through the plant. I was tasked to review the footage, then make copies, 6 of them to be exact, and then ensure that the footage worked and was
yeah.
self-executable and
Also-
able to be run from a USB
But yeah, I
stick.
still
So
don't know
I had
what
to
I'm
watch
gonna
the footage of this guy getting unalived
do for
over
my emotes,
8,000
shit, not my
times.
emotes, but
I
my
was offered
channel points
counseling
and stuff.
for just watching the video. Story 10. I was
Like, I
working
don't
at a
have
pub
no
in
emotes,
Sydney
I
and
don't
watching the
think yet.
CCTV when I saw a guy continually cross and
You can, like,
uncross
highlight a
his legs
message
while playing
and
a poker
stuff.
/ slot machine. After a few minutes, he walked to a corner of
Uh-huh,
the room,
what about
took a
subscriber
crap,
only?
and proceeded to go back to playing his machine.
That's
Talk
for
about being
subscriber
addicted.
only
That
chat.
man needs some serious
yeah.
help. Like, I'll bet
Like
there are
so.
people who have gambled their whole lives away and still not done that. That is addiction supreme. Story 11. Not a job, but my SO and I have the outlet monitor for our infant looking at his crib and room. It's set up like CCTV and it's creepy to begin with. I wake up at 2 a.m. and I go check on him and I go back to bed. Once in bed, I get on my phone to view the monitor just for reassurance. And I see 2 light dots, like eyes, in the night vision in the window of his room. I first crap my pants and I go into the room to check everything out. I can't see anything outside, so I turn on the monitor again and don't see the dots anymore. So I think it could have been a dog or something. I go back to bed and wake up again an hour later to check the monitor, and the dots are freaking there again. So I grab a pistol and go outside around his room and check the spot by the window, really ready to have to pull the trigger. Adrenaline is on full blast. I don't find or see anything, but the monkey grass has been mashed down by that window like something sat there for a while. I set up a sleeping bag in my son's room after that for a couple of nights, and I checked the monitor so I could see what the night vision caught, but I never saw those lights again. I'm super thankful it was just that, but I was scared. Edit. I am usually skeptical about stuff like this.
So what's
I
your
consider
Babs
lights
doing
and stuff, and I
anyway?
hope it was an animal
Hope
and
you
not
guys
a
are
person.
having
But
a
my
drink
son is now 6
of water
months.
at least,
This
or a
happened
little
when he was
sip,
4 months,
Becky.
and the camera has been there since we brought him home. The whole time it's been up, I've never seen that, and I don't live by traffic lights and no street lamp is on that side of the house. I seriously
you're a little
almost lost
cutie
bladder
patootie.
control when I
You're a
saw him
soggy
again at the
princess.
same spot just an hour later. But when I went into his room and looked at my phone, I just saw me and him and a black window. It freaked me out so much I prepared to defend my family, but he's 6 months now and I've never seen it again, so hopefully an animal. Story 12.
Was that
Not for a
little
living,
one?
but we had security cameras installed on the property whilst we were living in South Africa.
Those
We had a
videos that I
monitor set
saw
up next
say
to the
this.
bed so we could see
Otherwise,
what was happening on the 4 cameras without having to get up out of bed. One night we heard something unusual, so we turn on the monitor and see nothing. I'm ready to go back to sleep, but my partner thinks something is off about one of the cameras. Does this camera look like it's pointing in a different direction slightly? She asks.
Yes,
no,
good girl.
same as
Good
always,
girl, Becky.
and it's back to bed
No,
for
hold
me.
on.
She isn't convinced, so
Good
she
girl,
starts
Becky,
watching
good
the
girl,
recordings.
and
Sure
good
enough, footage
good
of
girl,
some dude
puppy.
prowling around on the property, and the
Head
camera
pats.
catches him
Head pats,
adjusting it.
everyone.
The terrifying bit? The way his face looked beneath the balaclava.
Giggle.
Murder mask is what my SO called it. Pretty creepy stuff.
Tee,
Story
hee, hee,
13.
yeah.
I reviewed the security cameras around my office building. The cameras
Ba, ba,
only
ba, ba.
monitor outside of the
That's
building.
so.
We have signs posted everywhere stating that
Ba, ba,
cameras
ba,
are
ba.
watching. You get accustomed to certain movement patterns and activations
Ba,
of
ba.
cameras. So I don't
Mhm.
have to review the whole day's activity, just the parts that show things out of the ordinary. For a while, homeless people were using an area behind landscaping to kick back and smoke drugs. It's all in full view of one of the cameras. Watched a few drug sales there too. However, the most disturbing by far was the banging. Basically, guys would take the homeless women to that area and do any number of weird and wonderful things. The weirdest of all was when some dude lay on the ground, and a drug-slinging / homeless woman sat on a bench looking at her phone. He slipped off her flip-flop and started sucking off her toes. He took short breaks intermittently to hit a glass drug pipe, then went back to work on the toes. This went on for about 45 minutes and then they left. We systematically found almost all the homeless escorts during the day, and told them our place has cameras and to not come back. Things have been quiet for a few years now. I don't know why OP's gotta hate. That man is living his best life. For legal reasons, that's a joke. Story 14. So many of these will give me
legal reason,
nightmares,
that's a joke.
So I'll throw one in the mix that I never want to forget. A year back, I was working at a hostel, and we have security cameras throughout the building. Watching
Just
the footage
watching the-
from the camera
having
in
the
kitchen,
YouTube video in
it
the
is about
background,
2 a.m.
like-
and a very drunk guest walks in, grabs some snacks, and accidentally drops an empty bottle onto the ground.
Boops
He
the
then
puppy.
proceeds to
Boop,
kick it up
boop,
into
boop.
the air and then kick it again in the air, where it flies across the entire length of the room perfectly into the recycling bin. In his drunken state, he threw up his hands, ran around in a circle, clearly in shock at how amazing he is. Then, after looking around, he noticed there was no one around to see it. After that, he looked visibly depressed and stumbled back out of the kitchen. Story 15. Working in a rehearsal studio for bands, we had a camera at the front desk that pointed down the hall with the entrances to all the rooms. One day, I'm sitting there minding my own business and noticed there was a girl sitting in the hallway outside of one of the studios. She had come in with the band that was practicing, and I just assumed she didn't feel like sitting in the loud space with the band. So I got up and went to tell her that she was welcome to sit in the lobby where there was a couch and TV. I got around the corner and she wasn't there. I went back to the desk and there she was, sitting in the hall waiting outside the room. So I went back out to find her. Not there again. I assumed she had gone into the room, so I went and knocked, and they informed me that the girl had left a while before, just after they had gotten started practicing. So I went back and there she was, still on the cameras. It was only then that I realized I had accidentally bumped the freeze frame button for the monitor. Story 16. I had a
Itchy
job
back.
reviewing hidden tape footage looking
Yeah.
for people sabotaging food product in a factory. The entire idea was creepy on one level. They made pasta and they were finding things like glass, screw, staples, and crap in the product. Thankfully, none of it made it out of the plant. They
so
had metal
how's the
detectors
day-
at the end of the
oh,
line
already
because
asked
it's
that. I
common
don't know
for
what
things
to
like
say, to
metal
be honest. I'm
shavings
kinda
to
just
get in the
vibing.
product given the machines. So
I'm
they
just
want
doing
to
my
catch
little
that and
thing.
stop the product. But machines went off and they'd inspect the product to find ridiculous crap in there, where there's no way it could have made it in unless someone put it there. That's creepy because think about how possibly terrible it would have been if that product ever made it to the public. You aren't paying attention, you throw your shells in the pot, boil them along with a nail, then feed that crap to your kids who just chomp down? Thank God for the fail-safes. Anyway, they need to catch whoever is doing it. They install the cameras in the areas where most of the affected product is made and packaged. They record it all. Then they hire me to go through the tapes on high speed, looking for alarms going off on the machines or anything weird. So I see a ton of stuff that's notable. Some of it funny, some of it cruel, some of it just plain terrible. Eventually, I do figure
Yeah.
out who the saboteur was. But the creepiest thing was this guy was driving a forklift around with his kid, not only on the forklift with him, but hanging out of the sides of it, waving at people. It's creepy because at some point, not long after that, the guy unalived his kid somehow in a forklift accident. Thankfully, the accident wasn't on tape, or at least my tapes. Kid never should have been allowed into the plant. Certainly not on the frickin' forklift. And this guy unalived his kid. So it was like I was watching a ghost. And I kept wishing I'd had those tapes to review a week or whatever earlier, because as soon as I would have said something, they would have disciplined the dude and maybe saved the kid.
Where's my water
OSHA
bottle?
would have a field day with that. What are you doing, dude? Like, okay, obviously it's unsafe because something terrible happened, but that should be obvious, right? You are operating heavy machinery and having your kid just hang out in the plant. It's weird. It's weird. There's a reason why bring your kid to work day isn't every day. Story 17. I'm not in security, but I work for a bank, and part of my job is checking the cameras in the mornings for pings overnight, and then making sure all the pings were just squirrels or leaves, etc. Last week, I saw a ping on our back entrance camera, and when I went to watch the video, it was a guy I didn't recognize walking back and forth in front of the door at 3 a.m. for a solid 20 minutes. Like, just pacing the whole time. And every couple minutes he'd stop and walk up to the door and stare into the camera.
Yes,
then
you
he'd
should,
go back
little
to
one.
pacing.
Have a good
The car
night.
eventually
I'll be
went by, and
right.
that
You know
must
where
have
I'll
set
be,
something
hon.
off in him because he legit ran away and didn't come
Good
back.
night, little
We
one.
ended up calling the
I
cops
booped
about
you
it,
and
but
put
I
your
still have
passy in
no
your
idea
mouth.
who he
Good
was
girl.
or what his deal was. Story
Yeah.
18. Watched a
Good night,
female
little
employee
one.
in the span of maybe a minute pick her nose, itch her front junk like a champ,
Good night, little
then
one.
reverse
Good
things
girl.
up and go the whole hand down her crack, scratching. Large lady.
Bye-byes, head
Then she
pets.
pulled up her hand to her face
Ruff, ruff,
and
ruff.
sniffed. And then,
Goodbyes.
inexplicably,
Bye-byes.
she licked the pointer finger. I've seen all manner of weird crap, but that one sticks with me. Seen people pee, crap, or whatever in the open, or in fitting rooms, or people getting it on in the fitting rooms, of course. Watched several dudes punching the purple clown. Always weird to confront them. Had to apprehend one for spunking on a rack of FUBU. One of the pervs are usually following young girls around, snapping photos, thinking no one sees them. And yes, I mean underage. Sometimes horribly underage girls. Coworker of mine had to have a guy arrested who was jerking it in the children's section while children were nearby. I was happy I wasn't there for that. I'm not violent, and I'm about 100% certain I wouldn't have done anything more than call the police like she did. It's more the frustration that you want to slap the crap out of someone, and you know you can't do it. People will do crazy crap when they don't think they're being watched. Story 19. Not necessarily creepy, but I work on security for a popular UK supermarket, and came into work one day to find a note asking me to burn an incident off the cameras onto disk. It was something from the car park the previous night, so I figured we'd had a shoplifter or an accident in the car park. But no, it wasn't anything as pleasant as that. We'd had a situation where a couple, older white gentleman and a young-ish Asian female, had been in store, and the night security guy just thought they were acting a bit funny. So he follows them around the store on CCTV in store to see if anything went on. Nothing really happens during this time, though the guy seems to become more and more aggravated. They go outside having purchased their shopping to pack it in the car boot, when a clear argument occurs between them. He suddenly turns round, kicks the empty trolley across the car park, and then smacks her full force in the face out of seemingly nowhere. She recoils in pain, a bit more shouting takes place, but she seems to dutifully take her seat in the passenger seat despite what just took place. During the process of burning this to disk for the police, since our security guy had called it in as an assault, I had to rewatch the moment where he hit her over and over again, but watch helplessly as she seems to calmly get into the car of the man who just assaulted her. Long story short, she was a mail-order bride who was trafficked here, and as well as assault, he got done in for people trafficking. So a pretty wholesome ending to an otherwise awful story. I feel like people who do those sorts of things get caught so infrequently, so huge props to OP. Human trafficking of any kind is disgusting, and I'm glad at least a little bit of it was dealt with. Tattoo artists of Reddit. What was your worst mistake and how did the client react? Story 1. I was a receptionist at a tattoo shop. One of the artists misspelled neighborhood on this guy's neck. He spelled it neighborhood, leaving out the first H. Neighborhood was the guy's nickname. It was a pretty large, elaborate tattoo, so there was no fixing it. I don't think I've ever cringed so hard in my life. The guy was surprisingly really cool about it. He did see the drawing and approved it before it was tattooed on. He ended up making the artist tattoo an H on his palm, so if anyone gave him crap about it, he could smack that person with the missing H. We now have a Discord.
How's it going?
Check out the server in the link in the description. Story 2. I had a client email me asking for a 4-letter acronym. I don't do freehand script, so I put the letters into a font generator and sent him back some options. He picked the one he liked best and we set an appointment date. On the day of his session, I showed him the acronym again and we chose a size. I placed the stencil and he approved it and I got started. Midway through the tattoo, I asked him what the letters stood for and he told me. My heart stopped. The letters were in the wrong order. The middle two were swapped. I ran to the shop computer to check my email, and sure enough, in his original email he'd sent me, they were correct. I had typed them into the font generator wrong. But to be fair, he had seen them several times since then and didn't notice my mistake. I spent the rest of the session covering them up with another design he'd had as a backup tattoo idea, and I didn't charge him. But it was a good learning experience for me to always ask what initials or acronyms stand for ahead of time, just to make sure I get them in the right order. Story 3. My wife and I got matching tattoos with our children's birthday and our wedding day. Pretty generic. We had to watch the kids, so we took turns. She went first. I showed up after her appointment and she was beaming with excitement at how nice the numbers were. She showed me, and the wedding day was wrong. She had the 15th and ours is the 14th. The tattoo artist felt terrible. My wife had looked at it at least twice before it was put on. Entirely her fault. Story 4. Just posted this in the other thread, but here it is again. I misspelled forward. It was a line of script on the side of a foot, and a last-minute addition to a couple other tattoos they were getting. I quickly knocked it together on Photoshop and nothing looked out of place. The client approved, so I made the stencil. The real screw-up is that I didn't ask them to spell check. I always ask them to spell check, except for this one time. The next day, they came back and pointed out that forward isn't spelt forward, like F-O-R-E. I do a lot of reading, and I guess it didn't look wrong because I'm used to seeing it as the foreword of a book. I apologized profusely, feeling like a total idiot, and told them to pick at the scab of the extra E and the W while they were healing and come back in 2 weeks. Fixing the O was easy, and I was able to turn the E and W into a wide loopy W and add extra bits of loops and flourish to other letters so it looked totally in place, albeit a bit stylized. She was happy in the end and still comes to get work from me. 10 years of tattooing and that one still haunts me. There have been other mistakes, but they're mostly the client's fault. Things like dads getting their children's birthdays wrong happens a lot actually. Dude, I don't know what month your kid was born. Call your wife. Also, bonus story, the guy who spells his kid's name wrong. I had him write their name down, and literally, he wrote it down, Bentley. I drew up a fun custom script, he loved it. Put the stencil on him and had him check it out. I even told him to make sure everything was right. All good. Did the lining and had him check it out while we took a break. He loved it. Finished the shading and drop shadow, etc. All finished. He's checking it out in the mirror, loves it. Until I hear, what about the E? What E? I reply in dismay. The E, Bentley has an E. So I show him what he had written down and he groans. Oh man, I always screw that up. My wife is going to kill me. So I sit down with the original drawing and manage to turn part of the L and the Y into an E. Add another couple of lines to reform the L and Y and boom, Bentley. It worked out in the end and I felt like an absolute wizard, but come on dude, it's your kid's name. And you didn't notice the spelling was wrong 10 times? What a job. Yeah, that last one, tattoo artist had nothing to do with it, because Bentley can be spelled without an E just as easily. I am always amazed when things like the first story here happen though, like 4-word, because you work on it for a long time, don't you? Tattoos don't just appear. I'm surprised at no point it clicked in for OP. Story 5. Worked as a piercer in a shop a decade ago. A guy came in and wanted Murphy's Law. The artist free-handed a design on him, he greenlit it after watching it in the mirror, and they did a beautiful piece with a banner saying, Murphy's Law. Seemed fitting. The guy loved the fact that his one messed up tattoo was the Murphy's Law one. Story 6. I had some really crappy experiences in this shop, but this one was up there. Apologies for the very long story. This was during my apprenticeship. I'd been tattooing on human skin for no more than 2 weeks and was very inexperienced. My mentor wanted me to participate in a $13 Friday the 13th flash special coming up that week. I drew a flash sheet full of designs that I was confident I could pull off with my limited experience. I spent the entire day beforehand prepping my station, gathering supplies, printing stencils and consent forms, cleaning the entire shop, etc. I decided to sleep on the shop floor that night so in the morning I could buy the whole shop some fancy donuts from a nearby cafe and get back in time for the event. Right before it started, my mentor, who was also the shop owner, changed up the rules of the special. He announced on Instagram that people could bring in whatever small design they wanted to get done for $13. I was suddenly being asked to draw and tattoo designs that I was fully unprepared to take on. The shop had one computer with Photoshop that we all had to take turns on to create designs, so our turnaround time slowed to a crawl. And I already tattooed slow anyway since I was so green. The shop was overflowing with people and we had a wait list with literally over 100 names. Over the course of the day, I only managed to tattoo 6 or 7 people. I ended up working for 14 hours straight. Didn't even have time to eat any of the donuts. Just as we were about to close up shop at 2 a.m., one girl walks in and asks if she can still get in on the special. She asks for a butterfly. My mentor tells me to take care of it. I'm exhausted, but hey, you don't tell your mentor no. So I print the stencil and get started. And well, my hands just stopped functioning. My wrists were so sore and cramped from working all day that I couldn't control the tattoo machine anymore. It was the strangest, most horrible feeling. I watched in horror as no matter how hard I tried to tame my gnarled hands, I just completely botched this girl's tattoo. Lines were all squiggly and off. I even cut into her arm in some places. Lots of bleeding. I felt absolutely horrible. It looked horrendous. I called another artist over to finish the tattoo for me and told the client that her tattoo was on the house. She left without saying much. We closed up shop after she left and I told the other artists to go on home while I stayed behind and cleaned up. I cried as I cleaned. I only made enough money that day to cover the price of the stupid donuts. By the time I was done cleaning at like 3:30 a.m., I still had to ride my bike a few miles home. I was so tired that I decided to spend a second night sleeping on the shop floor. I woke up early the next morning to ride home, and the rear wheel had been stolen off my bike. I had to carry it 2 miles to the nearest bike shop and spend $90 on a new wheel, tire, and cassette. I thought that was the end of it. That was the end of the nightmare. A week later, I'm at home and get a call from my mentor. He's screaming through the phone. Apparently, the butterfly girl went and left a 1-star review of the shop on Google after her experience with me. He said I disgraced the name of the shop and the other artists that worked there. I had to come in the next day and apologize to each of them personally for damaging their reputations. I then had to contact the client and apologize once again to her and offer her another free tattoo. She never responded. The whole experience was humiliating. I've been told by other tattoo artists since that my mentor is mostly the one to blame for this whole situation and that I'd been set up to fail. But I still feel so awful about what I did to that poor girl's arm. I should have known I was just too exhausted to keep working. I should have just called that other artist over much sooner to fix my work before I made it worse. I should have done a lot of things differently, but at least I learned from it, I guess. Ugh. Anyway, I hate tattooing butterflies now. Kinda sounds like my man had repetitive stress injury from working all day. That feeling of your hand just not being able to do what it needs to do and it's just the weirdest feeling, I get that. I think I've had that a couple times. Really though, yeah, it's not OP's fault at all. His mentor set him up to fail hard. Bad choice by the mentor. Story 7. A few years ago, I was tattooing a client who had apparently lost a bet. His buddies were allowed to tattoo something behind his shoulder as long as it wasn't racist or offensive. Turns out the guy drew up a design of a leprechaun throwing up on a book. Sure, why not? Everyone was sober and they were paying pounds up front. Easy work. The drawing was really simple and shading was easier than I thought it would be. Turns out everyone liked it, except for the guy with the tattoo of a leprechaun throwing up on a book. He picked at the scab trying to get rid of it, completely took it from bad to worse. Guy comes in about 10 days later demanding a refund of the money he didn't even pay, or the studio, not me, to cover it up. Nope, management said you signed for it, you were in your right mind, and then you damaged it yourself. Personally though, I was yelled at and told to never tattoo anyone like that. It only works in television series or film. Did I make a mistake? Yes and no. The lesson here is don't get involved in others' drama when permanent body markings are involved. Story 8. Did my first one on an old schoolmate who was aware of my artistic abilities, despite having never applied ink before, and he offered me his back. I had 3 pros watching as I drew a geisha freehand on his back while he was hunched over. When the design was laid out, he checked it in the mirror and was good with it, so I began lining it. The thing is, the other artists said it looked great, but unfortunately I was doing something else when he checked it, so I didn't notice just how screwed up it really was. Anyway, I lined it and we took a break. As he stood up while I was watching, my heart dropped, as I witnessed the geisha's face droop into a palsied state on one side. He was sitting leaned forward with his elbows on his knees while drawing it, and so it distorted the canvas. Now, this sounds crappy, but I never really liked the guy that much anyway. He originally wanted a back full of strippers, so I didn't feel that bad when he went to look in the mirror. He lifted his shoulder to look at the tattoo, which normalized the proportions, and he said it looked awesome. Well, good then. Big lesson learned though. I still have the occasional nightmare over it. So, OP had 3 professionals watching and none of them pointed out the fact that this guy's skin was stretched or whatever, or bunched up? That seems weird. I feel like one of them should have caught it. Story 9. I was doing a big old tattoo of Battle Cat on a really cool client's leg. I got so into doing this big awesome tiger head that I forgot it wasn't a goddamn tiger and colored the stripes black. I realized about a third of the way through filling them in and let the guy know. He was disappointed but mostly okay with it. I felt like I was going to puke. I finished the thing feeling so freaking sick and then refused payment. Man, going from that feeling of elation to immediate crushing disappointment was hard to shake, and kind of dazed me. It was extra crushing because it was a fun tattoo during a time when I wasn't that busy and was mostly absolutely dreck. The payment was just the icing on top, so letting that go was hard too. Ugh, just thinking about it now is making me feel sick. Story 10. My only spelling mistake ever was in Italian. Girl wants a phrase in Italian. She writes it down no less than 5 times on a piece of paper. I tell her to make sure it's correct. I don't speak Italian. She insists it is correct. I draw up some nice script, tattoo it on with no issues, bandage, pay, and she leaves. She comes back in hysterics and tells me I spelled it wrong. I had not thrown out the paper yet. I spelled it exactly how she spelled it. I asked her what she wanted to do, and she decided, no one I know speaks Italian. That was about 15 years ago. I often wonder if she ended up getting it covered up. Story 11. I gave a guy a tattoo in prison of his girlfriend's name on his arm. I knew him on the street and his girl, and knew it was going nowhere, and insisted he change his mind. He didn't, so I made a bet with him that crap was going to go belly up within 6 months. When we got out of segregation and back onto the yard, a few weeks passed at most, and I can see him having a bad conversation on the phone. He called me over to his cell and offered me up a huge freaking sack of commissary without a word. I didn't take it. Figured he needed it more than me. Still feel like crap to this day. Story 12. I had a client who decided he wanted lettering on his forearms, sayings in Greek and Hebrew. He doesn't speak either language. but he had one of his friends double check the spelling before he sent the references to me. Came in, we did the tattoos, pretty simple appointment. Fast forward to a couple weeks later. I get a message from my client about the tattoo that was done in Hebrew. He owns a small construction/restoration company and had a few Israeli guys who work for him. Apparently, they were giving him a lot of crap for his Hebrew tattoo. He originally thought they were just messing with him because it was spelled wrong. The font he had chosen off a quick Google search essentially changed a couple of the letters, kind of like the difference between an F and a T, making it a completely different word. We ended up being able to fix it pretty easily and had a good laugh about it. But definitely beware when you're getting tattoos in a language you and your artist don't speak. Or perhaps maybe don't get tattoos in a language you don't speak at all. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say it's offensive or anything. Just like, it seems really
Hello
risky
there, Batman.
for
How's
something
it
that's gonna be on
going?
your
What
body
you been
forever.
up to?
That's all. Story 13.
Long time no
Apprentice
speak,
here.
eh, bruh?
Nothing major, but bad karma on one tattoo from the get-go that absolutely floored my confidence for a bit. Only
That's good.
recently
Hold
did
on.
my first
I
ever
just need
small
to quickly
tattoo on
set
a
up my
client. Had to do a
again.
small range of flash ideas that I felt comfortable with. Had my mentor,
E,
who, judging
what
by some
is-
other
hold
stories
on.
I'm very lucky to have, he's a sound dude, discuss with me before for my needle
What
choices,
is the
placement
I
technique,
as
usual
K?
bits, and was
Okay, I
ready to
want
go.
to set you to
Everything
K.
felt ready. Midway through, my machine goes. It's brand new, my only one. Managed to sort it
tool
out without much
keyboard.
fuss. In doing so, in my panic, I put the wrong needle size in the machine when it came to replacing it with a fresh one. Botched a line when I
Multimedia, hold
realized
on.
almost immediately the size difference. Change again, nerves are shot, back at it.
Keyboard.
Brand new foot pedal, breaks. Replace it with an old one from my mentor. It breaks. 2. Power pack dies. That was brand new too. Panic,
Okay.
spill my ink. Practically had a meltdown in my brain about what has happened. Carried on with another artist's equipment, apologizing as calmly as I can to my client. Mentor calmed my nerves and I ended up pulling it out of the bag. And doing a job I was happy with somehow.
how's
but
it going?
most
I'm still
importantly, the
drawing
client
or
loved it.
coloring in.
Anyway, not a crazy bad story, but
I'm
as
getting
an
there
apprentice
slowly.
who's also a fairly confident dude, I have never felt so
She's almost
absolutely
finished.
floored in my life. Tattooing
Just have to
someone
do
is
the
monumentally
pattern,
stressful
forget
when
the
all doesn't
design
go to
for
plan.
that.
I can't wait to do more and progress. But screw me, what a time for crap to happen. My mentor helped me sort all my gear afterward and was super cool. Sat with me and said something like, well, of all the times and all the things that could have gone wrong, that was the absolute perfect one of them. Nerve-wracking stuff. Story 14. When I started tattooing, I was working at an awful studio that would often give me works that didn't fit my style in any way. Like very fine line
Currently
works, which
sitting
I
on my
wasn't good
knees
at
right
all.
now.
The mistakes I made were usually crooked tattoos or going too deep. And instead of actually helping me, the owners would either yell at me later, forced me to tell the clients I was more experienced than I actually
Hold
am,
on.
and got
Oh.
upset that I asked too many questions. Eventually, they just stopped giving me work altogether. Sadly, every once in a while, they give my number to unhappy clients that I tattooed at the time, and I still get calls asking me for compensation. I know it's also my fault for those things, but they really refuse to take any
I
responsibility.
don't know which one I...
These days, I have my own small one-person studio. I have nothing
one
but
second.
sweet and
I just
satisfied
need to
clients, and
figure out-
ironically, I do a lot of fine line tattoos now, which I used to really hate at that other studio. But if you want a specific story, here you go. While I was in the studio, some girl wanted a cursive tattoo that was extremely tiny. It was super small and thin, and when I finished it looked good, but when it healed, a lot of the letters spread and mashed up together, and because she barely had any tattoos, it was very noticeable. I gave her money back even though she demanded me to pay for tattoo removal. And yes, she signed a contract beforehand, but the studio told me it protected only them and not me. I read thoroughly and fortunately realized she had no case against me, so she couldn't sue. In general, today, I recommend people to steer clear of that place. Disgusting money grabber jerks. Story 15. When I was but a wee baby piercer, I worked at the biggest shop in my city, which had 14 artists and 2 piercers. It was the peak of the tramp stamp trend. I'm still so sad that was the nickname, but Antlers was so much better. So when a super tiny 18-year-old black woman came in and wanted her name on her lower back with a flower, it was just normal. An older white male tattoo artist took her to pick a font. It took a minute, even though back then everyone went with Edwardian, but they came out. I had her do the paperwork and he got the drawing finished. She okayed the design, she okayed the stencil, she sat for the tattoo, loved it, tipped him, and left. 2 hours
guys hear
later,
sound in the
she called
background?
back sobbing, saying we ruined her life. The counter girl told her to come in and we would fix whatever was wrong. Tattoo girl comes back with her 2 gigantic, angry AF friends who are ready to freak out. We finally see the tattoo. Her name was Whitney, but the N got left out in the font process. So huge across her lower back, it said Whitey. It was covered for free and with many apologies with 3 giant purple roses. The tattoo artist was so screwed up over it that he didn't come in for a week. It was an honest mistake, but it was also the worst freaking spelling error I've ever seen. Legal professionals of Reddit. What's the funniest way you've
Sorry,
ever
how you
seen
going,
a lawyer or defendant blow a court case? Story 1. I represent school districts. One of my clients has a farm that is used to teach agricultural science to the students. The manager of the farm decides to brutally euthanize a ton of chickens in full view of a group of elementary school students. Sometimes farms have to euthanize chickens. That wasn't the problem. The problem was that he was whacking the chickens over the head with a hammer, and he had to whack each chicken like 5 to 6 times before they died, because he's apparently some kind of psychopath. The poor chickens were not dying. That didn't deter him though. If one refused to die, he just tossed the chicken on the ground and try again with another. But the birds were all getting horrifically damaged, so they were flapping in circles on the ground or walking with terrible stuttering limps or screaming. One of the kids recorded it, and Jesus Christ, it was awful to watch. So I recommended the school district fire him immediately because holy hell. He sued for gender discrimination. We now have a Discord. Check out the server in the link in the description.
I have your ref sheet.
My brother was on a jury back in the days of MySpace. A woman had been hit by a big
I want to
rig
learn
during
how to
foggy
draw
weather.
a little bit.
She was suing for a back
I could
injury.
probably maybe
the last
draw
day of the
you
trial,
a
they asked her
character.
if she has a MySpace account and brought up her site for the jury to see. I think all profiles were open back then. There's a picture of her dancing on the hood of a car, and right next to it is a text exchange of her saying that they shouldn't go out too much because her lawyer says that she has to look injured. Needless to say, she lost that case. Story 3. A funny historical one here. Marshal Ney is on trial for treason after Napoleon gets overthrown for the second time. His lawyer desperately tries to save the Marshal's life with an unusual take on things. Due to a border change, Marshal Ney's hometown was, at the time, in Prussia. Therefore, argued the lawyer, Marshal Ney was not technically French and accordingly could not be guilty of treason. Marshal Ney disagreed and shouted out to the court, "I am French and I will remain French!" He was subsequently found guilty and sentenced to death. This also has a double whammy with badass last words. He was asked for and was given permission to lead his own firing squad. His last words to them were, "Soldiers, when I give the command to fire, fire straight in my heart. Wait for the order. It will be my last to you. I protest against my condemnation. I have fought 100 battles for France and not one against her. Soldiers, fire." Talk about a way to die. On one hand, I would like to apologize for my accent. On the other, I just want to say I had to try it. I had to try it. I'm Canadian. By all means, I should be able to do a French accent. Clearly, it's not the best. But hey, story 4. I once attended oral arguments for a U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit. It's pretty much the big time. I watched a lawyer argue that his client received what's known as ineffective assistance of counsel at the trial, from which she was appealing. The attorney, however, was not doing a very good job during oral arguments. So at one point, one of the judges on the panel leans forward and asks him, "Counselor, are you currently providing ineffective assistance of counsel?" Story 5. Not a legal professional, but I do have a good story on the topic. 15 or so years ago, my dad was the manager of a small hotel. One of the semi-regular customers was this big Samoan dude who booked in for a day at a time, always had a few visitors, and always paid in cash, in a one-to-one conversion with American dollars, highly unusual in Australia. Dad always said he was a great customer, very friendly with the staff, never gave anyone any problems, and always had a bit of a chat when he checked in. One day, a couple of detectives rocked up and asked to speak to my dad. They showed him a photo of the aforementioned customer and asked if he was currently staying in the hotel. Dad confirmed that he was, and in a matter of minutes, a small contingent of cops arrived. They stormed the room and escorted the guy away in handcuffs. Turns out the guy was a pretty major drug dealer and was wanted in a couple of states. Cut to the court date quite some time later. My dad is on the witness stand, and for whatever reason, the defense is trying to make out like my dad didn't know the defendant, and had never ever seen him before. Obviously, my dad insisted that he did in fact know the defendant, but that line persisted from the defense. As my dad left the witness box, he walked past the defendant and said, "Hi, Barry," to which Barry enthusiastically replied, "Hi, Jason, how are you?" While I'm sure this wasn't the only thing that counted against him in the case, it certainly couldn't have helped. He ended up getting quite a few years in jail. Asking how someone is when you are on trial seems like he's been through this before. He's just sitting there like, yeah, I'm gonna get put away for a few years, whatever. Story 6. My father is an attorney, and he always had a story for us when we'd ask him this question. He tells it way better than I do, but I'll give it a shot. Some dude was allegedly smashing a wall with a sledgehammer with others in order to break into a private property. The
It's a
cops
bit
rolled
warm
up
in
and he's
here.
the
I'm
only
gonna
one to
actually
get
open a
caught.
window or
Fast forward a
something
few
right
months,
now.
and this guy's in court.
But
Apparently,
yeah,
the cop says something
this is
about
what
how
I've done
the
so
defendant
far.
was the only one caught, but there were two other
do you
men who
guys
fled
think?
on foot and couldn't be apprehended. My father's
Ooh.
client's face lights up in an aha moment and immediately tells the judge, "Not true, there were 4 of us." I guess he thought that if he could disprove something someone said in the moment, he'd be let go. Safe to say he was found guilty of vandalism. My father says the judge just kinda sighed and told my father it would be a good idea to keep his client quiet. Story 7. Defendant is apprehended for warrants and asks the judge for bail. Tells judge he moved and was not served with the warrants. Some question as to his identity. Judge asks the defendant where he was born. Defendant says Puerto Rico. Defendant totally looks mestizo, not Puerto Rican at all. Judge asks, where in Puerto Rico? Defendant says, San Juan. Judge asks defendant, when were you last in San Juan? Defendant says, a couple of years ago. Judge asks defendant, how did you get there? Defendant replies, I went on the Amtrak. Judge would not grant bail. When you flunk geography, it's for a long time. Story 8. I was the respondent, not the lawyer, in a civil case where the county accused me of violating a rule that a house cannot have more than 2 parties in a month. The county's prime witness admitted on the stand that 1. The rule was implemented specifically in response to a complaint against me. 2. The rule was not written in the county code. 3. The rule was not included in my warning letter nor in my citation. 4. The county had no expectation of ever applying this rule to any other resident in the future. The judge declared the rule null and void. This would be a hilarious rule to have in like a group building or something. It's like,
never mind,
yes,
my brain
parties are
doesn't stop
fine
yet
and
from
allowed
when I
until
said.
2 a.m. except for you, Jeremy. Those have to end at midnight. Story 9. I'm an attorney, and I heard about a hearing where there were several criminal defendants before the judge. The judge noticed a strong smell of pot in the courtroom and asked if any of the defendants had pot on them. No one came forward and the judge proceeded, but the odor became stronger and stronger. Finally, one of them came forward and had several bags of weed on him. I'm not sure what his charges were before that day, but I wouldn't have wanted to be his attorney. Is this just in TV shows, or do they not pat you down before you go into a courtroom or something like that? And I guess if they don't, just why? Why would you bring that there? What could you possibly need that for? Story 10. I'm a bankruptcy paralegal. I used to work for a Chapter 13 trustee who told me this story. A debtor who had filed a Chapter 7 bankruptcy was going through the normal questions at his 341 meeting. This meeting is a hearing without a judge, where the trustee asks debtors simple questions regarding their situation and the paperwork they filed. Creditors may also question the debtor, but other than the IRS, none ever show up. And when I was there, the IRS representative always fell asleep, and I'd have to wake her when one of the cases she was there for was called. For the most part, it takes no more than 5 minutes per case. The hearing basically exists for the debtor to affirm under oath that to the best of their knowledge, their paperwork is complete and accurate, and for the trustee to address any issues he has with the case before the case is confirmed and allowed to take its natural course. With few exceptions, an attorney has done all their paperwork for them and is with them, representing them at this hearing. It's all very straightforward and a non-event for the most part. One document that the debtors have to provide is lists of their personal property. Another document they provide is used to protect their property, as in bankruptcy, you're still allowed to keep your stuff, your car, and your house, provided the value of these things is within certain limits or meets various
how's it
criteria.
going? Welcome to the stream.
Most people
Thanks for
don't have to
joining.
give up any property at all. However, in a Chapter 7, a trustee can seize any of your property that is not protected. This would be property that is worth more than the values that are allowed or that is not protected by other factors, such as being exempt from seizure for various reasons provided by the law. The trustee can also seize property if it could be protected but the debtor has failed to fill out the correct paperwork. I'm oversimplifying, but that's the gist of it. But again, very few people lose anything at all. Anyway, in his paperwork, the debtor in this story failed to disclose one item in particular, and had also failed to include it in the paperwork that would have protected it. And that is why he was forced to remove his genuine Rolex from his wrist. And he had to hand it over to the trustee right then and there. Story 11. Sovereign citizens always make for a good time. There was this guy getting a divorce from his wife of 25 years. His entire argument for why he shouldn't have to pay alimony to his wife who stayed home taking care of their 8 kids, 3 of whom were still at home, is that since his wife would no longer do her marital duties, it wasn't a marriage. She wouldn't sleep with him because he was against trying to prevent more kids happening at all, then referenced the Bible on top of it. The judge's face was priceless. Story 12. I worked as a paralegal in a firm specializing in land use litigation and real estate. Another paralegal's husband got a DWI, and as a favor to her, one of the partners offered to defend her husband in court. This is a small town with a landmark windmill in the center of the town. Well, the DWI of this paralegal's husband, who we all called the missing link, stemmed from him crashing his car into the windmill. Front page of the local paper, reporters at the arraignment, the whole 9 yards. So the law firm partner tells the missing link that when the judge asks him how many beers he had before his accident, complaint, he should tell her 3. He proceeds to stand up in front of the judge and tell her he had 3 cases. The whole room started to laugh and he ended up getting jail time. To me, it sounds like he didn't quite sober up before the hearing either. Don't defend yourself in the court of law under the influence, everybody. Story 13. I was an expert engineer witness at a deposition defending a contractor who happened to be an engineer himself. Plaintiff claimed he was liable as an engineer as well as the contractor. Defense was that he was the contractor, but that doesn't mean that he was the engineer for the project just because he was one. After 6 hours of headache-inducing questioning, plaintiff's lawyer pulls out a letter from and certified by the contractor that simply stated, "I am the engineer for the project." He sits back and basically has that look of, let's see what you've got to say now. Story 14. Obligatory, not a lawyer, but I took a class on constitutional rights where we had to read decisions from my country's Supreme Court. There was this one where a woman was suing her employer, a company, because IT had found intimate pictures of the woman on the company's computer. IT gave the tip to HR, who proceeded to contact the company's legal department. Anyhow, the woman was fired and she sued because she claimed that by showing the pics to the lawyer, the company was going against her right to privacy. HR also threatened to release the pics to other employees if the woman kept suing or something like that. In the end, the court decided that HR had to return the pics to the woman and that was it. The funny thing was that the woman claimed that those pics weren't even intimate pics, even though she was naked and in suggestive poses. She claimed that she had arrived tired from work, passed out on her bed, and her little daughter took the pics. Story 15. I was still in law school working for a solo practitioner part-time. We had this divorce where dude got caught cheating and his wife cleaned out the bank account, which was the only marital asset to pay for her attorney fees. There was absolutely no reason for her to pay that much for an attorney, and due to that, the attorney on the other side was inflaming her client to fight on every little issue to earn that retainer. Now, our dude was also stupid. He didn't pay the court-ordered temporary child support, and due to that, he had to pay some of her attorney fees. But after all that is dealt with, we have a date to hear arguments on anything not agreed to. Our biggest point is, he'll pay the support order, but she owes him half the bank account amount. We get in front of the judge and she tried to argue that she used the money to pay for a new place and moving fees. BS. We had the financial statement where wife stated that she paid pretty much the whole amount as a retainer. Judge turns around, looks at the attorney in the face, and tells her that her signature is on the financial statement, meaning that either she lied on the statement or she's lying right now. Judge tells her to think very carefully about her next statement, and that in her opinion, wife needed to pay half the money back. Other attorney goes quiet, asks for a recess, and completely changes her resolution position. We basically had her by the balls because she knew if we wanted to, this could amount to a bar complaint, as she made a false statement to the tribunal. We got him back all his money and he got to claim his child for the next 5 years on his taxes. Honestly felt bad for the wife. She had no freaking idea how badly her attorney was screwing her over. This, among other things, is why I refuse to practice family law. Story 16. Not me, not a legal professional, but my brother's EMT instructor used to live in Chicago. This one's a twofer. The instructor himself had had his license suspended for numerous traffic charges, including evading police, but forgot about his arraignment date until about an hour prior. So the guy hops on motorcycle and drives himself to the court. Remember this for later. The dude in the court right before him is a Hispanic guy. The judge reads off everything he's charged for and then the conversation goes like this. Mr. Gonzalez, how do you plead? No hablo inglés. Mr. Gonzalez, do you understand a word I'm saying? No hablo inglés. Mr. Gonzalez, am I to understand that the whole time no one has bothered to get a translator for you? No hablo inglés. Well, I guess if you can't understand what you're charged with, we'll have to drop all the charges. Gracias, senor. Starts walking out. Get back in here. After him, the instructor goes up. Judge reads his charges and then asks him how he got to the court that day. Oh, my brother gave me a ride. Is that right? Yes, Your Honor. Judge looks at the bailiff. Do you have that footage from parking deck 3? He then proceeds to play CCTV footage of him showing up on the exact same bike that he used to run from the cops. His license remained suspended and the judge told him he couldn't go anywhere near the bike during that time. There was even a cop standing next to it when he left. Story 17.
No,
so this wasn't the defendant, but a plaintiff. I was on a jury for a civil trial. There were 2 co-plaintiffs suing one defendant. The first co-plaintiff was being represented by his father, who is an older guy and didn't seem to have much experience in court. For the first week of the trial, seemingly every other question was being objected to, usually because his questions weren't questions, or he was trying to elicit testimony that was hearsay. He basically upset everyone and presented a terrible case. The second co-plaintiff then gets on the stand, and it was clear that he was there very reluctantly. It gets to the defendant's lawyer's turn, cross-examination, and the co-plaintiff blurts out that the only reason why he's there is because of a fiduciary duty to the other plaintiff. Then he gets asked if he feels the defendant owes him any money, and he just says, no. It was 6 weeks of this stupid trial. It wasn't every day, and there was no trial during the week of Thanksgiving, but it was still excruciating. And we, the jury, ended up awarding no money to anyone. What a colossal waste of time. Story 18. Not my case, but still a personal favorite. I was sitting in court waiting for my turn. Case going was a littering case. Officer said he saw the defendant throw the clear wrapper on a pack of gum out his window. Guy decided to defend himself. Girlfriend takes the stand. Officer has already testified. Guy asks, "Did I throw a gum wrapper out the window?" She replies, "No, you did not," with this huge grin on her face. The defendant is now also grinning and goes, "What did I throw out the window?" To which she replies, "It was the plastic wrapper from your cigarettes." Guy rests his case right there. Literally thought he would get off because the officer couldn't properly identify the clear plastic that he admits to throwing out the window. Story 19. I used to be a police officer and spent a lot of time in court and saw a lot of things go really wrong for people. But the one that sticks out is a guy who was up for a DUI. He started relaying his side of the story and tells the judge he only had 2 bottles of wine. His lawyer is desperately trying to tell him to stop talking, and he yelled at his own lawyer, "Don't interrupt me!" And the judge says, "I think you should take a moment to listen to your attorney." And then he told the judge, "Don't tell me what to do, I'm not a damn child." And the judge just smiled and leaned back and said, "By all means, continue." It went badly for him, unsurprisingly. Employees of Build-A-Bear. What is the weirdest thing a customer has requested? Back in the earlier Build-A-Bear days, I was asked to put an urn that contained the ashes of their father who had recently passed from cancer into the bear. I didn't know what to say, and my manager was on break. They were really sweet, and I completed the task for them. They also had previously recorded his voice, so that also went into the teddy. 20 minutes later, when my manager returned, I informed her of what happened and how I handled it. And within the next few months, we had a store policy of no deceased remains. Looking back on it, I'm happy I could do it for them. They even dressed it like him and had planned to have it on the mantle for the family and grandchildren to press the hand and hear him. We now have a Discord. Check out the server in the link in the description. Story 2. I worked there in high school about 10 years ago now. I guess the weirdest thing, but was very common, was putting dead relatives' recorded voices into stuffed animals. One was for a little girl whose father had died in Iraq. I was definitely crying while I sewed that bear up. Other than that, there were a few bronies that came in for Rainbow Dash. They were always very awkward, but nice. Story 3. Watching a teenage girl make a bear dressed like her boyfriend for her boyfriend while he was there. I have never seen someone try so hard to look interested but failing. Teenage love, I guess. The weirdest thing is all the middle-aged women who come in every time anything new is released. They collect them, but they are always super weird people. Story 4. Wasn't an employee, but I was there for this story. So I was there getting a Build-A-Bear for my friend for their birthday. I was going to make it full of inside jokes and a few light inappropriate jokes.
Should I just have it like just like that, or should I do something? I feel like I should put some thought into it.
I was standing behind him when he did his recording. He was nice and cool. Then he grabbed the mic. I thought he was going to say something nice because he told the guy working there that it was for his girlfriend. Here's how this guy started his recording. "Hey there, fatty. I know you're screwing with Roberto, you frickin' skank. You frickin' cow." Keep in mind, he's screaming this in a store full of young children. The employee didn't stop him because I assume he was too scared that he would probably rip his throat out if he intervened. Parents scrambling to cover their kids' ears. The guy did this for I think a minute, but it felt like an eternity. After getting his voice box sewn into the bear, he practically skipped out of the store happy as a clam. I know why he did it. I'm sure he planned out a nice date with her and then would give her the bear and crush her world. But this guy was yelling at the top of his lungs. When I made a dirty joke, I was at least quiet so the kids behind me didn't hear. Everyone wanted to unalive him, but they were also too scared to stop him. Not really weird, but everyone was speechless in that Build-A-Bear. That is one creative way to tell someone that you know they're cheating. That is like #1 petty revenge, and I guarantee that during the relationship, the girl had told him it's like, "Oh, I would love a Build-A-Bear," or something like that. So now that this happened, he's like, "Oh yeah, I'll show you a Build-A-Bear." Story 5. I worked there for almost 5 years back in the early 2000s. Once, there was a woman who came in with her son's monkey and asked for a hole to be stitched up. This was common and we all knew how to do a basic ladder stitch, so my manager agreed to do it. When she took it in the back, she noticed that there were holes only in the crotch of the monkey, and that the fur was matted. That's when she realized that this woman's son was probably banging the doll. I don't remember if my manager put on gloves and stitched it or offered the woman a new doll, but that was by far the craziest request. I also once had to get into that bear costume after someone wore it for 2+ hours because a woman complained that her son wanted to meet the bear and we packed up 10 minutes early. That sucked really bad. The mother had to have known, right? Like, how? Oh no. Just oh no. Story 6. Not an employee, but at the one in the mall near me, the employees told me a lady would come in with her pet monkey that she treated as her child. She used it as a clothing store for the monkey. She also tried to sue the local school district into letting the monkey attend, but was unsuccessful. Story 7. Not weird, but heartbreaking. Had an older woman come in and she requested 5 bears, each with a personalized voice box. She was in the late stages of cancer and was getting a bear for each of her grandkids, with a different message to each one to remember her by. This next one is potentially heartbreaking, ultimately awkward, and traumatizing for those involved. A coworker used to work in a different store, and one day a person came in, picked a bear, and sort of faffed about a while, before taking it to be stuffed. Coworker puts a bear on the machine, hits the pedal, and is covered in a cloud of dust along with the guest and the store. Turns out the person had poured their late partner's ashes inside the bear and not said anything. Tip: if you want to put ashes in a Build-A-Bear, get a little urn and put some ashes into that. And then put that into the bear. Loose ash equals bad. Story 8. A native family wanted to put a real bear tooth inside the bear. It was for a newborn. I made sure to check the sharpness of the tooth so it wouldn't puncture the fabric. Nothing weird with that job though. Although there was a time when this old drunk guy walked by the store and tried to grab a little girl near the entrance. A father intervened and got her back, but people were more bewildered by this guy doing it so obviously rather than actually getting upset. I hated the store's music though. Kids singing hit songs. I hated the chipper face / voice we had to put on, and I hated handling the fluff when refilling it. I've never actually been in a Build-A-Bear. Do they just play Kids Bop like 24/7? That sounds even more torturous than working retail during Christmas. Story 9. Not an employee, but a few years ago I went with my little sister to get some horse thing done, and we were waiting in line to do the heart thing where you have to kiss it and promise to love the thing forever. The girl in front of us asked the lady doing the hearts if her bear was gay because it was rainbow. The employee looked a bit taken back, but recovered and told her that the bear could be gay if she wanted. And in the most lethal voice I have ever heard out of a small child, she said, "If you give him a gay heart, I'll rip it out myself and feed it to the wolves." Haunts me to this day. Story 10. I worked at Build-A-Bear for 2-ish years. I just recently quit this past April. People put a lot of things in their stuffed animals. Voices of deceased relatives were a popular one. I don't think that's weird though. We all grieve in our own ways, and hey, if a bear with Uncle Ted's voice and it comforts you, whatever. The people who really weirded me out were the people who didn't want anything. Not just no sounds or smells or whatever. I get that crap's expensive and adds up quickly. I worked there and I couldn't afford a decked out teddy bear. I mean, no fabric heart for the heart ceremony, no birth certificate, no box, nothing. All of which were encouraged and free. I want you to remember something. This is Build-A-Bear. You are buying a $30 teddy bear for your kid. You can go literally anywhere else for a stuffed animal for half the price. Build-A-Bear is about the experience of making the bear, customizing it, and taking it home for your kid to have their own custom and personal furry friend. Yes, that is what we have to call them. Why the frick are you paying $30 for a random stuffed animal? Why are you doing this? What the frick is wrong with you? At least put a fabric heart in, dude. It's free. It's literally free to put a cute little heart with a wish for your child. It makes no sense and to this day frustrates me, because to me there's no better way to say, I don't give a crap about what I'm getting my child for Christmas than that. Also, as a bonus, people who are super weird with gendering their kids' stuffed animals weirded me the frick out. It's a teddy bear, Kyle. Your daughter can give it a tiara and call it Michael Jackson if she wants. Story 12. I worked at Build-A-Bear for 8 years. It was honestly a pretty great job. The weirdest request I ever got was a woman brought in a moose. Not our brand. It was a gift from her boyfriend and her children had ripped the head clean off. She wanted to know if we could fix it. I was one of the better ones at sewing, so the manager brought it to me. I told the woman I would do my best, and I was able to get the head back on. I returned it to the woman and she said it looked as good as new. One day we had a kindergarten teacher drag in this huge Eeyore stuffed animal that the kids love. It had gone flat over the years and smelled and looked just gross. We actually opened it up and refilled it. The smell as the air and stuffing went into it was awful. Sewed it back up and sent her on her way. We had multiple people come in to put pacifiers in the bear to break their little one of the habit. One particular mom did that, and then came back 3 days later and had us open it up and remove it. The
Hi there,
saddest
Cuddles.
was the woman who put a mini urn of her parents' ashes inside. Anyway,
Yeah,
those are the ones
look at
that
this
stick out to
adorable
me.
bean. I'm
Story
try- I'm
13.
wa- I-
My
I- I
girlfriend and I
messaged
were
them to
probably
see if
the
they want
weirdest
it to
group
be
of the
soggy
day
or
at
not.
our local Build-A-Bear. We went to Build-A-Bear for her birthday and the promotional live-action Lion King bears were on sale, so we decided to get the ugly live-action Pumbaa bear. He is an absolute unit with lazy eyes
It's
and
so
an evil smile.
adorable.
He knows the sins he's committed and he is not remorseful. Anyway, we dressed him in nothing but a cowboy hat and Marvel boxers, and then named him Charles Entertainment Cheese. Oh, and his voice box is also the Super Mario theme. I like
Hold
to
on,
imagine
my-
that when I die, the only thing that will be there is
My
just
painters,
his face
all
in
came
an
back,
endless
hold on.
void, while the Super Mario theme plays ominously in the background for eternity. The employees were super helpful, but were obviously a little uncomfortable at how hard we were laughing at the creation of our stupid son. Story 13. I interviewed for them last year. My hair was a very light blonde, but I had dark roots, so it was easy to tell it wasn't my natural color, although it was a very natural color. My interviewer asked me if I could dye it black because it was unnatural and parents would throw a fit. I told her it wouldn't be possible because it took me months to get that blonde. She then proceeded to write the number 1 on a piece of paper. This is what I have graded your interview on a scale of 1 to 5. I didn't say anything and just walked out. All because I didn't want to dye my hair black. Oh, and the hours? 10 hours a week while I went to school. I think it's so funny when random retail stores are that strict about what their employees look like. Like, nowadays there are people who do commercial work, like who are on camera in commercials and have like tattoos that 10 or so years ago people would have been like, you'll never find a job with that. And here they are representing a company with their face. Isn't that crazy? It's almost like it doesn't really matter. Of course, if they had like a shirt on or something that was inappropriate for children, sure, but like just a hair color, get over it. Story 14. I worked at Build-A-Bear Workshop for 7 years, and I don't know that any requests were super weird. We put recordings of deceased relatives, recordings of fetal heartbeats, pacifiers, and squeakers from dog toys and animals. Okay, that last one might be a bit strange, but the rest were usually very sweet and touching moments, and sometimes exciting the kiddo who was graduating from their pacifier. I did get called a lot of names when the holidays rolled around and we were out of the holiday animals. No longer an issue since Maxine retired, and everything was produced in ridiculous quantities instead of limited ones. I was often asked to produce products that we didn't have in stock, but that's retail. I think the weirdest experiences were helping kids dress their animals. Some folks have interesting choices in outfits. I remember one little bear left our store in a tank top, undies, and heels with bows on the ears, of course. The owner of said bear was a 6-year-old girl, but she stayed within her budget. I actually loved working there, and if I had any free time or ever needed extra money, I'd probably go back. Story 15. Not an employee, but I read a story about someone coming with one of their young relatives while they were doing the Eevee thing. And when the relative asked OP what to name the Eevee, he responded with Sam, which got some looks from the employee handling the Eevee afterwards. The employee said to them, "I know what you did." Sam is the name of the main protagonist in a adult comic. Sam is also an Eevee in that comic. What? Story 16. Not an employee, but I have a somewhat related story. I have extreme anxiety, but was determined to get my girlfriend, now ex, a Build-A-Bear for Valentine's Day. I went to the shop and picked out everything for the bear, including the voice box, which had I love you pre-recorded. Went to stuff the bear, and the woman, who is a very sweet older lady, wanted to see what I picked out for the voice. So she played it in a very busy shop. She played it once and said, "Aw, I love it," and played it again, and again, and again, and again. By this point, I had everyone in the shop looking at me, wondering why someone keeps triggering the voice. Panic attack nearly sets in at that moment. Just wanted to stuff that bear and get out. Story 17. Obligatory, not an employee, but a customer. Visited Build-A-Bear for the first time at the age of 24 and was far too excited and also too old for it, I suppose. But as you're about to find out, my level of maturity wasn't that high. The shop assistant, bear builder, told me I could put a voice recording in it. I nearly lost it. I had no idea that was an option. Said all I had to do was say my chosen phrase into this little microphone. and the machine stressed you didn't even have to do it loudly because it's a special microphone. So I decided I wanted my bear to say the F word, but like how a dog says it in a meme video. I felt safe because the shop was loud and the children in the line behind me won't hear me say it, right? Right? Well, the machine repeated my recording back to me, loud enough for the kids behind me to hear. I nearly died. My boyfriend at the time, now husband, and his friend nearly died. The children behind me were irreparably scarred, I'm sure. And that's the story of how I have an Eevee plushie that smells like cupcakes and says the F word. Story 18. I worked at Build-A-Bear for a few months when I was at uni, and it was great. I didn't find anything super weird as I worked in a new store and wasn't there very long. But I just found the amount of money people would fork out for the latest bear absolutely insane. We had a kid who was a huge brat, pulling things off shelves, crying and shouting when his parents said no. His bear ends up about 70 pounds. Then the next day, the mom comes back in, saying how her son wants some different boots and skates for his chase bear, and doesn't like the ones they bought. She didn't bring any of the tags in or a receipt though, so I just handed her off to the manager because I did not want to deal with that. My favorite ones were a couple and their toddler. The mom was pregnant and they were making a bear for baby to be. Their son was so excited that he got to kiss the heart that went into his future sibling's bear, and it was just so adorable. Overall, a great place to work. Would recommend if you don't hate kids. Story 19. A woman had come into the store. I was the only person on as the opening manager, and Charmander had just come out that morning. I was understandably busy and was helping a large needy family when I noticed a woman come into the store. I went up to greet her and I let her know that I was almost done and she would have my undivided attention. This woman was in rough shape. She looked like she was fresh out of the hospital, battered, bruised, cut up, and stitched back together. She seemed distracted and upset, so I assured her I'd be no more than a couple minutes and to look at the options. I finally finished with the others and started talking to her. It turned out her and her husband and child were hit by a drunk driver coming home from a movie that weekend, and her husband didn't make it. We were both a weepy mess, and all she wanted was a bear with a saved Snapchat video of him singing a silly little song he made up for her. We charged her shattered phone a bit from my power bank and got the sound in. Going through the heart ceremony, it felt like I was performing a memorial service for her. We wrapped the heart with a bit of his favorite t-shirt and sewed it up. The bear was dressed in Chicago's Bears gear, and we made a birth certificate. After checkout, she asked if she could come back to add his ashes, and I had to tell her I could get in a lot of trouble, but showed her a video of our stitching method and gave her a length of needle and thread to attempt on her own. She gave me a long, teary hug and left so much happier. I know it may not be the weirdest story, but I'll never forget her. That kind of day makes me love working at Build-A-Bear. Story 20. Not me, but a coworker. We had a younger teen come in that got one of our troll dolls, and they made it very clear that they wanted the butt to be as firm and prominent as possible. We just figured they were, discovering new things in life. Other than that, we don't usually see too many weird requests. Then there are the people who you are convinced are using their furry friends during more adult activities, but that's about it. Story 21. Oh god, I worked there a lifetime ago, around 2000 or so. I loved that job. One of the weirdest things was when a customer brought a pet's ashes in a little plastic baggie. I was no longer surprised by the ashes thing, but I was really surprised when they asked me to sew the baggie of ashes to the outside of the stuffed cat. I really can't remember if this is 100% true, but I think I passed off that customer to my manager, mostly because I can't sew that well. Another one. My store was in a fairly large mall in suburban New York, and it was a fairly popular stop for some touring events. I remember when Jim Belushi and Dan Aykroyd stopped by to promote their Sacred Hearts blues band, and my store manager authorized us to make a teddy bear and dress it like a blues brother, but only one teddy bear. To share between the two of them, I guess? I was celebrity starstruck when I presented it to them, but looking back on the old Polaroid I have of the moment, the weary, confused looks from both of them will always stick out in my mind. What's an industry secret in the field you work in? Auto insurance agent. Please, for the love of God, don't tell auto insurance agents more than you have to. They ask you a question, just say yes or no and answer the question as straight as you can. If you go on and on about your life story, you will probably end up saying something you don't have to, and thus making your rate go higher, or getting yourself declined. We want to get you that policy as cheap as possible. Only tell us what we need to know and don't say anything else. We now have a Discord. Check out the server in the link in the description. Story 2. I'm a dentist. Here's the lowdown on toothpaste. As long as it has fluoride, they're basically all the same. When I was in dental school, the Colgate lady came by and said that everything that says Colgate Total on it is all exactly the same. The only difference is the packaging. So whether it says whitening or gum protection or whatever else, it's all the same. The exception is sensitivity toothpaste. It typically does have an extra active ingredient, KNO3, which helps with sensitivity. Don't ever feel obligated to buy the expensive toothpaste because you think it will be better for your teeth. Just buy whatever you like best. I don't know what KNO3 is. Is that like, my periodic table is rusty. Potassium nitrous oxide? Or oxide something, because there's 3 of them? I don't know. That's my best guess. Story 3. Library worker here. The majority of donations we receive do not end up in circulation on our shelves. No matter how much you demand we put them there once they're donated. The reason why this is because we only add items to the collection that we think will circulate, be checked out. Most libraries get funding based off statistics. We don't want to waste shelf space on items that people aren't checking out, as it won't improve our stats. So unless the donated items are brand new or by popular authors, we will not add them to the collection. We will also weed unpopular items from our collection with extreme prejudice for this reason, much to our patrons' horror. These books usually end up being sold at book sales to help generate funding for other library programs. Story 4. A lot of librarians will waive your fines if you have an excuse and you don't ask too frequently, even large ones. Also, librarians don't care about your fines and we aren't judging you. Please come back. We personally have more fines than you. Librarians are always overdue with their books. Story 5. A huge portion of online reviews, ratings, social media presence, etc. that you see for any given company are fake, paid for, or done by multiple accounts controlled by us. This includes a company's Glassdoor page. Fake reviews about how great it is to work there, so that the million negative reviews don't crush their page. I'm not saying it's every company out there, but it's been a lot of the ones I've worked for. Source. Am a copywriter. What are ethics? I surely don't know anymore. Story 6. I work in logistics for a massive manufacturing company. Money's not real. $1,000 for 8 light bulbs. Story 7. I was working for a large specialized manufacturer where virtually every order for parts or service would be in tens of thousands of dollars, with the average order closer to $1 million. A customer needed to purchase 4 steel bolts, just normal steel bolts. Person following internal guidelines tacked on all this overhead. Bolts came to several $1,000. The employee had no idea what bolts cost and assumed the guidelines were right. The customer, not being an idiot, kept pushing back. This went on for several months. Eventually, it got escalated high up in our company to someone who had the authority to approve $1 billion in spending, who was being asked to intervene on 4 bolts. I am a native speaker, and the company was not a native English-speaking one. So this eventually fell to me, as I got forwarded months of correspondence. It went something like this. Here's the estimate for the 4 bolts. Here's a link to 4 bolts of the same size for $20 with shipping. Our bolts are $10,000. Yes, but why are they $10,000? We need to purchase from you to maintain our warranty, but we cannot understand the price difference. Here is a technical sheet for the bolt. Yes, I agree. They are bolts. This does not explain why they are $10,000. Here's a technical document from R&D describing the features of the bolt. Yes, we know how bolts work. This does not explain why they are $10,000. I have negotiated with my manager. We are willing to sell you the bolts for $8,000. Again, these are 4 bolts. They should not cost anywhere near that much. We have given you a $2,000 discount and are no longer making profit. I cannot offer you a larger discount. These are 4 bolts that cannot cost you more than a few dollars to make. How can you not be making profit on this? Your company has wasted more time and cost on this correspondence than it would have cost to just send the 4 bolts in an envelope. Bolt cost? Less than $1 for all 4 of them. I sent them for free and had to justify the $8,000 loss to management. Thankfully, the management was not quite as dumb as the employee, wasting 3 months of their time on back and forth about a bolt. I seriously wonder how much time was wasted creating documentation to justify the price of this bolt. There was a department-wide email afterwards explaining how bolts work and that they should not cost as much. No change to the overhead policy for small orders, though. Who is this employee to think that the bolts could possibly cost $8,000 to make? That just seems absurd to me. How did this person enter the workforce? Because that is a new level of just not understanding anything. Story 8. Former aircraft fueler. Don't check your pets in kennels, especially in summer or winter. They are submitted to some very harsh environments. They're left on belt loaders in the sweltering heat right next to a running APU that's loud enough to deafen human ears, let alone a dog's. It's terrible. I always feel so sorry for them. American Airlines will destroy your luggage. They get overloaded on carts, fall off on the way to the plane, and are left there to get run over by tankers and, yes, fuelers, and rained on, then dragged to the edge of the ramp to sit all night while you arrive at your destination and wonder where the hell your bags are. If your departure is delayed, 90% of the time, it's us, the fueler. Look out the window to the right side if it's a small plane, left side if it's a really big one. If there's a truck sitting under the wing, we're the reason you're late. Sorry. Story 9. Healthcare. Homemaker. If your grandparent or parent gets in-home care, please know that your family member could live in a cockroach-infested house and not have to move if they didn't want to. It's not up to the company to give your loved ones environmentally safe places to live. It's up to the family. They can certainly try to persuade, but they can't force. Why do I know this? Because I've been to the cockroach-infested house where an 80-year-old woman lives. I have a mentally ill client that put bleach in his dog's water to help with its breath. I have a client who never cleans his cat box. I have a client who has a caved-in ceiling. I've called it in, but there's no help from the company. All they say is, there's nothing we can do. It's up to the family members. It's a sad, sad thing because there are so many family members and friends who really just don't give a crap how some people are living. Sure, they'll visit, but do they clean the litter box? Do they make sure there are no cockroaches? Do they make sure the house is stable and not falling apart? Nope. They say they care and that they love the person, but they don't care enough to make sure they live in a healthy environment. It really worries me, because if I imagine my own mother having such a deteriorated mind and there is no other family member to help her, she could live in a rundown, cockroach-infested house. If she was stubborn enough. It frustrates me, because whereas the client does have rights, should they really have the right to live somewhere where their health could be at risk? Where their caregivers could be at risk as well? Story 10. Amusement park ride operator here. If your kid is crying and you want us to stop the ride, even if we want to, it's not going to stop immediately. The carousel will spin a few more circles or the ship will swing a few more times before stopping. The only exception is the emergency stop, which will absolutely screw up the ride for a while if we press it. Therefore, we only use it in really life-threatening scenarios. The best thing you can try to do is just get your kid to calm down as the ride comes to a stop. And no, yelling, "Stop the ride!" at us does not make it stop any faster. Story 11. Change your dirty furnace filters and clean your AC coils outside. These make up an easy 30% of my calls for no heat or cooling. Edit. More tension than I thought. So real quick, you have two coils, inside and outside. Your furnace filter keeps the inside one clean, so make sure that filter is clean. Usually 5/16 or 1/4 nut driver and like 20 screws. Don't use high pressure water, simply on a shower setting and hold it a few inches away from the coil. Do it from both ways. Button that beauty up and wait for it to dry before turning power back on. Your head pressures are going to love you. Oh, and don't forget to blow your condensate line more than your husband.
Hi, Emmy.
Prevents
How's
water
it going?
flowing back into the unit from a block. Story 12.
Hi, Emmy.
Cigarettes
How's it
were
going?
years ago demanded by the EU to contain less nicotine. The manufacturers of cigarettes looked at each other
Hello?
quite dumbfounded because how are you supposed to extract a naturally occurring product in a plant? The solution was ingenious, and
Hi,
the
Emmy.
EU
How's it
demand
going?
eventually helped the tobacco industry skyrocket in
Are
income.
you sure
The
about that
tobacco
now?
is during production treated with liquid nitrogen, which
Yeah,
almost
'cause I was
doubles the
switching
volume of the
my
tobacco,
head, it's
making
switching my- I
significantly
had to, like,
less
change
tobacco
it and
needed
put it
to
back.
fill a cigarette,
Ugh.
thereby lowering the amount of nicotine. Story 13. I work at a university. I'm not an academic advisor in any department, but I provide services to them and help them graduate people when it's unclear whether students met all the requirements or not. And the industry secret is that most of you really don't know what you want to do when you start college. The half that say they do are mainly programmed by their parents. Go into IT, make large dollars, but they have no idea of what they'd really
Yeah,
like. So
how long
don't
did
feel
I
weird
take
or
that?
a
I think
failure
it's
if you
been
change
about
majors.
5 hours,
It means
I'd
that you
say,
actually
roughly.
looked around and found something you like better. Stats show that students who change majors do better, on average, in school than the ones who stick with the major they came in on. This shouldn't actually be a secret, but students don't seem to know it. Graduating high school, that was like super burned into me. That yeah, most people change their majors, so don't stress about what you go in with, for one, and two, don't stress if you feel like you want to change. On the downside, yes, it does cost a whole year of tuition, but like, still, it's better than spending 3 more on something you don't like. In fact, I changed my major after my first year too, so yeah, OP's right. Story 14. Audio engineer here. A few seemingly obvious things to point out. 9 out of 10 times with a studio, you get what you pay for. You have to pay for years of experience, acclaimed expertise, plus hundreds of thousands of dollars in equipment and software. Not to mention the hundreds of thousands of dollars that went into the acoustic engineering of the physical recording space alone. People walk into great studios,
what this reminds you
balk
of,
at the $1,000 a song, but don't realize they're getting access to close to $1 million in tools. Plus, an engineer who's going to make them sound better than life.
Yeah, that's
on the flip side of that coin, be wary of eye candy. Don't be fooled by big mixing consoles. Sometimes they're not even used for your music help.
I'm just
Sometimes
stuck
they don't
on
even
like
function.
what I want to
I've
draw
seen
right
studios
now.
where the sole purpose of a large board is
For
to
the
dupe
diaper.
unsuspecting musicians into
Also,
parting with
I
their
asked
money.
if she wants
In
to
larger
be slutty
studios,
or
bands
not.
with smaller budgets are often stuck with an intern who may not even be getting paid. If your music is crap, no amount of production is going to make it a hit. As a small studio owner, I only share work that I think will bring me more business.
Let me actually
Wondering
write
why
the-
I haven't shared your music? It's because it's garbage. Billie Eilish recorded on budget equipment
Do
at home with
something
her
like
brother.
that, or-
Those recordings were then worked on by some of the best engineers in the world to make it sound like it wasn't. Be wary of a record label. They may offer to front the costs of your recording and touring, but you have no creative control over your sound, as well as where you record, your tour schedule, and usually the label will own your music. Oh, and you have to pay back all of that money to the label. Be cautious of studios that claim so-and-so recorded here. There's a studio in Iowa that claims Slipknot recorded here, and while it's true, Slipknot did record in that building, it was a different owner, different engineers, and some different equipment. You're not going to sound like Slipknot there. Sorry. Story 15. Worked at a department store photography studio owned by a major photography company that you can imagine probably took your school yearbook photos. The company also is partnered with a popular online photo order website. Notice how quickly we write down a price, strike it out, and then write a new price as the deal? Yeah, that's pretty much just the price that everyone gets. We aren't doing the math that fast. We have it memorized because almost everyone that comes in has that 40% off coupon. Don't come in without a coupon. There is always a coupon on the website. If you end up paying for sitting fees, it's because you just didn't go on the website. Honestly, don't buy our photos. If you just do the session and say that you'll buy them online later on said partnered photo order site, it'll be cheaper than if you buy them in store that day. Yes, even when we say, oh, but you won't get this deal online. If you do buy in studio that day, just buy the digital CD of your photos. You get to keep all of them instead of having to pick
My
your
dad is
favorite 3
my
or 4.
CG is
Oh,
being a
and
bit of a
again, it
tease
is
right
way
now.
cheaper to take that CD to a photo kiosk and have them printed yourself. Please don't spend $400 on a couple of photos that you can't legally copy when you could have gotten an $80 CD of all the photos and the copyright. Story
like-
16. Software
I was
developers.
like- I was like,
A
it's
lot
been
of
5
big
hours.
companies are barely keeping up with tech.
And I'm like,
Innovation for them is like saying, let's
they want a
upgrade our
photo.
core systems
Makes
from
me
Windows
think, and
XP
it's
to
like,
Vista
makes
in
me
2020.
rush.
As a consultant, I simply don't trust big companies anymore with my identity or money.
Yeah.
The state that their on-premises hardware
I've-
and software
I
in is an
feel a
apocalypse
bit
waiting to happen.
things
There may
in
be
my
a few
belly
teams that
happening.
actually do use the latest stable tech, but they usually integrate on top of the other crap and get bottlenecked. More often than not, the solution would be to try to get the very last bit, pun intended, out of a system rather than to migrate it. I think in most cases it will be 5 to 10 years at minimum by the time we've reached the bottom of that barrel and actually start addressing the problem. Have any of you guys used Vista before? I had a laptop I used to game on that had Vista on it, and I used it for like 4 years. It was hanging on by the end. It was trying its hardest. It also didn't help that I went on those videos. It's like, ooh, free Robux. Look at that. It's never free Robux. Don't believe them, guys. Story 17. I'm a massage therapist, and the biggest secret is stretching. If you stretch properly, you will get rid of effectively 90% of the problems, but no one is taught how to stretch properly. The best stretches are actually the stretches you learn in middle school. Hold still, count to 10, take deep breaths, move on. I'm not gonna lie, this post has blown up a lot more than I expected, and I'm just going to give a little more information. The whole point of stretching is to do the opposite motion of what the muscle does whenever it's in use. And the point of stretching is also to alleviate pain and bring circulation to the area and regulate the muscle's basic systems. So here's the basic rule. If you hurt somewhere, do not stretch that place. Find the opposite muscle in the opposite movement and stretch that one. The way the body works is kind of like a giant game of tug-of-war. Muscle actually controls the movement of bone and helps with your posture. No one has perfect posture though. So stretching makes sure that nobody wins the tug-of-war and that your bones remain in place as close to perfect as possible, which means that your bones and ligaments don't take any damage from gravity or any other force that affects your body during your daily life. I will not lie, however, if you do have injuries, like if you have broken or torn or dislocated or separated something, that pain will never go away. It will dissipate and it will get to a lower level in which your body will be able to tolerate it on a daily basis, but it will never go away. The body can never correct something that's been broken. This should help you be able to search your own stretches online, but apparently I need to make a YouTube channel. Just think opposites. If your back hurts, look for stretches for your front, like in your chest and in your core. If the front of your legs hurts, you need to stretch the back of your legs. If the front of your arms hurts, stretch the back of your arms. Just do the complete opposite of wherever you hurt, and start stretching that area, and you should notice pretty quickly that it's tighter when you stretch the side that does not hurt than versus when you stretch the side that does. Good luck. Story 18. I work as an accessibility consultant. There's a misconception that building accessibility is a cost without a return. If I build a ramp, it'll cost money. If I make an automatic door, it'll cost money. But studies and real-life situations have shown that the return is much greater than the cost. If you make your office more accessible, you are able to hire people with disabilities, who actually have lower absentee and turnover rates, saving you money in training and lost time. If your business is accessible, the person is more likely to not only return, but also tell others about your store being accessible. And if you, a customer, or an employee happen to suffer a disabling condition, that person can return to your business afterwards. It's a secret that's not really a secret, but people seem to act like it is. Almost every client I've had who has ended up implementing accessibility improvements end up loving it afterwards.
Hi there.
And attracted entirely new customers too, such as seniors. Why is it that people who run businesses seem to make these oversights all the time?
There's a faster way.
Specifically, what you specialize in is like how to make money, and yet you don't realize the long-term benefits of something like making a building more accessible. I don't get it, man. Story 19. I work in the blood industry for medical/research/manufacturing use. When you donate, your red blood cells and most platelets will actually be used for medical purposes.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. The proximity chat one, right? That one.
Dude, that shit was funny as fuck.
Dude, have you seen the new one too? It was him.
I'm actually in a couple
Have you seen the new one where they actually go to the bar and tell him about the video, and he just has a freak out and bans one of the mods? My God.
I'm in a couple of
I saw this video in the proximity chat uploaded recently that this girl was claiming that she had phantom sense and that she was allergic to tomatoes, so that when someone threw the tomato, when someone threw the tomato, she started acting like she was having a panic attack and a fucking she was acting like she was having a allergic
Can we admit
reaction.
the way she passed out was 100% fucking fake?
Wait, so you've seen it? You've seen it where she fake throws up and everything because they're throwing to your eyes?
Dude, did you see the fucking the daycare shit?
Faint like that. That is not how you faint.
And we happily are hooking you up with way more than we are allowed.
She starts going, I'm feeling terrible, and she goes, I think everything is blacking out.
All agree, screw the system.
No, she's like, I can't black. And I was like, oh my God, this is so fucking fake.
It's likely not because you've been slighted by
Yeah, did you see
Second embarrassment watching it right now.
Oh yeah.
the fucking daycare
follows
one?
company standards and measures out exactly what they are supposed to. Calling to complain does very little. You're probably tattling on someone who never breaks rules and is a total butt-kissing narc. Pointing at another employee and shouting, "But he did it for me last time," is a narc move. Stop it. Enjoy an endless future of secret decaf espresso and light nacho cheese. Airport security personnel of Reddit. What is the weirdest thing you've seen inside the passenger's luggage? I worked at an airport as a line tech. A former baggage screener, pre-TSA, told me of the time he opened a bag and found a human skull. The passenger was an MD and had all the appropriate paperwork to transport the skull, but it was still surreal. We now have a Discord. Check out the server in the link in the description. Story 2. My grandmother was 92 at the time, about 1.6 meters, and a very neat and civilized person. Security checked her bag, checked it again, called some more security guys and pointed, and then they asked if she had anything in her bag that was illegal. Grandmother said no, and they asked if they could search it. They couldn't find anything at first, so they asked her again if she had a knife or something like that in the bag. Granny thought for a while, and then she suddenly remembered. She unzipped a hidden pocket and pulled out a 15-centimeter switchblade that she forgot about. Apparently, she used to carry a knife when she went to the market with her friends, in case she wanted to get a bit of food that she needed to carve up. Or she used it to shank people, who knows? Story 3. My father travels a lot, and was going through airport security one day in Europe when he noticed his bag was taking longer than usual to go through the x-ray. The security guys called over another guy, and then another. They're all looking at his bag, gesturing and pointing. A guy finally came over to my father and asked, "Are you a mountain climber? We can't figure out what's in your bag, and climbing equipment is our best guess.
Yeah, I'm
You have
getting
some
there
sort of metal
slowly.
hook in there." My father was absolutely not a mountain climber and happily opened his bag for them. He had bought a metal crane truck as a toy for my brother and it looked strange on the machine. They all started cracking up and asked if they could use the photo of the bag as training. It must have been a slow night. Story 4. A live spider. Passenger didn't know and wasn't large, but he opened his bag. It crawled out and I screamed. Also things like human ashes, homemade fake dongs, the woman of that one gave me her business card, a live cat, antlers with rotting flesh still on them, and my favorite was a magician's bag. It was alerted for explosives. He kept pulling bits out of pockets and showing me bits of his act. Story 5. Not airport security personnel, but I was that passenger once. I had a whole dead carp in my backpack. I was visiting my grandparents in the Czech Republic right before returning to spend Christmas with my parents in France. Carp is our traditional Christmas dinner in the Czech Republic, but it's pretty hard to get in France since French people don't eat them. So I figured that, hey, I might as well buy one and take it with me. The lady who checked my bag was not impressed, but she let me go through with my carp. I guess there are no rules against taking an entire carp with you on a plane. Story 6. I once was traveling for business and I just brought my Game Boy / Game Boy Advance / DS / PSP games. It was like 2 Ziploc gallon bags filled with games and 3 portable systems. I checked my luggage bag, so the only thing in my carry-on was crap tons of video games and systems. TSA stopped and looked through it, then brought over some other people to laugh at the guy traveling with nothing but 200 video games. I really hope these guys were laughing with OP and not at him. I think it would be pretty stupid to laugh at someone for making your job 10 times easier. Got nothing to search, it's just all games and plastic bags. Story 7. It was me. I found a taxidermy chicken on a trip and had to buy it. Then I had to get her home. Well, she wouldn't fit in my suitcase, so I had to carry her in my arms. It was a really busy travel day, and that chicken amused everyone. Absolutely every person in line suddenly wasn't grumpy anymore. TSA all laughed, especially when she had to go through the x-ray. Passengers who were irritated at lines started smiling.
Yo, what's up, kitty?
I loved it. 10 out of 10, would travel with the chicken again. Story 8.
How do I get up there?
Spending time with my girlfriend
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how to get up there.
I'm anxious and especially nervous while going through security. Topped with being sad that I won't be seeing my girlfriend for another long period of time, I'm feeling a little weepy.
What
my
the
bag rolls
fuck
through
is
the
that
scanner and
thing
I see
there?
this woman's face get all concerned and she calls over another agent to look at the screen.
Yeah, I
I'm
can
thinking
hear.
like, oh god, what now?
Yeah, can
she
you-
asks me, do you have a milkshake mixer in your luggage? I'm just taking it all in for a minute before it dawns on me. I have no idea what a
Yeah,
milkshake
yeah, I'm
mixer
here now,
looks
kitty,
like,
yeah,
but
I'm
I
here.
know that I don't have one. My
there's a guy right
Hitachi
here,
magic
kitty.
wand is in there though. At this point, I'm feeling
there's a guy
overwhelmed by
now,
everything, and
monkey.
now I'm pretty embarrassed, and
Okay, I
there's more
thought-
attention on me than I care for. So I promptly
This
burst
is a
into
lot,
tears,
babe.
sobbing, "It's
Wait,
a
how do I
vibrator!"
get
How loud
up
did
to
OP
where you
say
are?
this exactly?
follow me.
Because I just want to imagine the scene in my head. Was it loud enough that people behind them in the line were like,
on.
this is awkward? Or was it just loud enough for the TSA agents to hear? Honestly, for the story's sake, I kind of hope they yelled it, because that would be hilarious. Even better than the chicken we just talked about. Story 9. I flew with an antique 12-inch cast iron skillet with a lid, as well as 2 antique oil lamps with iron brackets and mercury glass reflector in my carry-on. They were family heirlooms that I carefully and skillfully wrapped in my sweaters and a long velvet skirt and lined everything with socks and bras. Yes, my packing
that
skills
guy
are to be envied.
disappeared.
I had to
What
explain to the
disappeared?
TSA
Because
that
they
I was
don't
not
always
planning
say
to
that.
use the skillet
Yeah.
as a weapon,
They
and
just
that
give
the
you a trace
reflector
of
was not
where
the
you
casing
can
for
make
a
a
bomb,
walk through.
while my bras were just lying all over the table. Me yelling, "Be careful with that, it's super fragile," probably did not help with my not a bomb plea. Story 10. I was the passenger. I was taking a pressure cooker and some spices to my sister that she left behind when moving out of state. In the interest of saving space in luggage, I put the spices, the kind in glass jars with metal lids, inside the pressure cooker. I'd also found a pair of earbuds that belonged
I
to
don't know
her
if you
and
can
chucked
see
them into the
mine.
spices
Can
for
you?
Yeah, I
an
can
easy
see
handoff
most
package.
things,
I
yeah.
was not surprised to find TSA's note. I was a little put out that they confiscated my deodorant, which had been in a sealed plastic bag with the other hygiene supplies that were completely separated from the pressure cooker. Story 11. Not TSA, but joined a tour of TATS a week after 9/11. You can imagine adding a new one-way ticket for every flight leg of the tour into a group of 60
guys, it's
plus
over
and
here.
raised a few flags.
He's a
I
guys
got
over
all
here.
my bags pulled over and searched in full view of everyone every time.
here.
At that
Oh,
time, for
yeah.
big groups, they did it before they got put on the belts. So
Damn,
we
this room
decided
is
to start
massive,
screwing with
apparently.
security. We put a gigantic red fake double dong and lots of gay adult magazines, yes, magazines, it was 2001, in my suitcase to watch their reaction.
Oh, yeah.
We started rotating it through different people's bags to see the different reactions and didn't tell everyone which bag it was in. Story 12. There's a lot of old stuff found in checked
Oh, yeah.
baggage. Commercial fireworks, the mortars that shoot up into the sky and explode. Cops were involved on that one. A skinned goat skull packed on top of clothing. It had obviously missed the plane, sat for a day, and that was a very bad day. Poorly sealed jars of rotting blended fish must be a delicacy somewhere. Undeclared firearms are fairly common. They don't necessarily pose a danger, but there's a right and wrong way to transport them. Story 13. Not really TSA, but about 10 years ago, I flew to Mississippi from Logan Airport, Boston. I didn't have luggage, so my ex's dad let me borrow his gym bag. I was only going for the weekend. When I arrived in Mississippi and got to my hotel room, I began to unpack my bag, and to my surprise, there was a giant frickin' box cutter in the inner pocket of the duffel bag. I found it really concerning considering I flew out of the same airport as the terrorist of 9/11 and had a box cutter. You know, what the terrorist supposedly used to gain control of the planes. Story 14. My brother is TSO. He once stopped a guy for having an entire bag full of dead fish. Not frozen, not on ice, just raw fish in a bag. He also saw a fake dong in some lady's carry-on, but I doubt it's the strangest someone's encountered. Last, not a strange item, but more of a seriously situation, he stopped some lady from bringing a bottle of water past security. She told him, "Oh, that's not my dog's water." He told her they sold dog water at the terminals. Story 15. Not TSA, but I worked in a baggage room where bags sat idle until they were run to the plane or another transfer point. We typically didn't open bags unless they were leaking, or vibrating, or void of any information, and we needed to reroute them, hoping for some form of ID inside the bag. It's vital you properly tag your baggage, as the airline's tags are only
there's a massive room here
strip that will detach should it get drenched. And trust me, they can get drenched. Oh, and some are just plain paper and disintegrate. Anywho, we had one guy come in from Paris with only a backpack. When it got to our bag room, a large red pool of something was leaking out of the bag. Obviously, our first thought is blood, so we put on some gloves and slowly opened the bag.
my pet didn't arrive, and
blueberry, blackberry, raspberry.
All I'm gonna say, as Kitty knows, it's gonna be a matter of time now.
Badly damaged and was now leaking out of the bag and all over everything else.
Yeah, because I might have taken a special type of chocolate.
Like way more than anyone should have ever stuffed in this little backpack.
Yes.
He legit could have gotten these things from anywhere in the US, but opted to jam them into a backpack and ship them across the world. Where one broke and definitely looked like a horror scene.
Yeah,
we all knew better, but we're definitely waiting for a head to be in there. There's also the time that for whatever reason a 5-gallon bucket of something squishy was left on the ramp. The gate called us to come get it. It was actually bleeding and smelled like barbecue. There was a picture of a pig on the side of the bucket and everything was in Spanish. We got a friend to translate it, but I forget what it was for.
Ooh, that's a drop there.
Were sponge-like and filled with blood. Pretty gross. Story 16.
Well, I couldn't hear
when I
because you're
worked
too
at a
far
small
away.
regional airport pre-9/11, we just had Southwest Airlines come in, and they were running a promotion. $39 from BWI Baltimore, Washington. Anyway, I got called over for a suspicious bag. I still remember it. It was red and black checkered plaid with leather corners, old school luggage. It had no ID tag, so we decided to open it to see if anything in it could be used to get an ID. Well, I put on some latex gloves and proceeded to open the bag. About 6 cockroaches ran out and 2 up my arm. As I continued to open the bag, I discovered a small electric hot plate, as well as a beat-up sauce pot and like 2 pounds of used coffee grounds sprinkled over everything. Oh, and about 50 more cockroaches. Real hobo starter kit. Pretty odd stuff. Story 17. Here is my story from being that passenger. I was traveling to visit my now husband for the weekend and didn't want to check a bag, so I only had a carry-on. In my carry-on, I had a big metal butt plug with a tail attached. You can imagine how that looked on the scanner. Everyone could see it on the x-ray too. There was a girl in front of me that got her boyfriend's attention and pointed at the screen and started laughing because she obviously knew what it was. TSA pulled my bag to the side and asked whose it was. So I walked up with my beet red face as the girl laughed even harder. The TSA officer, who is an old Indian guy, then held up my butt plug by the tail and we had a conversation like this. What is this? Butt plug? Then the TSA agent looked confused and continues to inspect it and holds it by the plug and smelled it. What is it? Intimate toy? What? An intimate toy, like it goes up my butt. The TSA agent immediately got super embarrassed and put it back in my bag and covers it with some clothes before sending me on my way. All while I am dying inside and the girl behind me can't contain herself. Why would the TSA agent smell it? What a weird idea. Like, he thought that would help him figure out what it is? Even if it weren't an adult toy,
look mighty
what did
pretty,
he think that
though,
would
when we
accomplish? Man
Yeah.
glitter
gambled
it,
for
but-
0 gain and still lost big. Story 18.
Why
Dumbbells.
would
Two
you
20-kilogram
Oh,
dumbbells.
other stairs.
Couldn't be
Okay.
seen on
More
X-ray
stairs
and was pulled for search. Was dumbfounded. He thought that there was
Watch
no
it, there's a
problem with
fall
that
down
until
over
his
there.
head's
There's
on
a
plane
fall
that
down
bounces
over there.
around.
Stairs.
Obligatory
There's
risky
stairs.
item
Stairs.
moment. The
There's
best one,
good.
new girl on X-ray machine has
couldn't
pulled
see it.
bag off for handcuffs.
So unlock it so
Right.
I can't
Let me
see
just
it.
look at that image a moment before I open this bag.
Just
Yeah.
put an
Closer
invisible
look shows
black
faint
question
outlines of
mark.
some long, shapely objects
just found
with
2 of 'em.
motors at the base of them. Asked the guy where he was going. Meet my fiance. Sir, please show me the handcuffs to prove that they have safety catches and you're free to enjoy your weekend. The smirk
Damn,
on
you're
that
in your
guy's
room.
face. Yeesh. Story 19. This is a really hard question to answer seeing as I work at one of the busiest airports in the US. Here's a list of my top 5. 1. A dead chicken. 2. A dead dog. 3. A bag full of liquor store adult content, the kind of stuff that you see only sold at liquor stores, I mean. 4. A bag full of adult toys and lube, none of it in packaging or unopened, like seriously, how much do you need? And 5. A bag of moldy
You hear
fruit.
that?
Stank up
Yeah, I
the
don't
whole
know.
checkpoint, and the guy acted as if
You
it were
are-
normal to allow fruit to ripen
Oh, let me
beyond
turn world
consumability
up.
in your
Let me turn the
backpack.
world
It
volume
was
up.
damn near wine, everybody.
Turn the
I'm
world
sorry.
volume
Where
up.
does OP live where liquor stores
Yeah, it
sell
says like,
adult
"Grr."
content? I am not familiar with this. I thought liquor stores had to be pretty tight on what they sold because it's government run, at least in Canada. Story 20. As a traveler, I once took a retractable plug, police kind, in my carry-on.
over here.
I forgot it was in my bag.
What? A what?
Miami security made a big deal and had a
Right here.
specialist bomb
See it?
guy check
Oh,
the
yeah, I
bag.
see ya.
Then I got interrogated for quite a while, not in the private room, just to the side of security, where they threatened jail as I'm a foreigner, Canadian, and a $5,000 fine. And went on and on as I continued to state calmly, it's not really a weapon. Finally, someone asked why I
Up here.
had this thing, and I said that I'd
Yeah.
been in Colombia and it was for personal security. The officer checked my passport for the Colombia stamp and then gave me a look like, why would you go to dangerous Colombia and why wouldn't you bring a gun? And then they offered me the club back as long as I checked it. Story 21. I've told this story before, but I was doing training in North Carolina. We went on a work trip. This guy who worked with me was in front of me on the bag scan. He went first and they flagged it and pulled him to the side,
There's a
asked
bed
if they
bag
could go
here.
through his bag. Well, they pull out a pocket kitty. My mouth drops, but they can't figure out what it was. 3 people are around it looking at it, and then they look at him, ask him, what is it? He doesn't say a freaking word. This, of course, leads to me busting out laughing. They call a supervisor over and he's looking at it. Finally, they tell him he can either tell them what it is or they will keep it.
It
He
says-
tells them to keep
Another
it,
statue
grabs
down.
his bag and walks off. I started laughing so hard I had to stomp my feet. We never discussed it again. Story 22. Passenger, not security agent.
tunnel.
When I was in college and would come home to visit for
Yeah,
the holidays, my
underground
mom would always
tunnel.
pack my bag full with as much food as she could fit.
Another
This
person.
always included a hunk of cheese, at least a pound. Often more than 1 hunk and up to 5 pounds.
rainbows.
I would invariably get pulled aside, patted down and asked what might be in my bag. It always ended in cute conversations with the agents about mothers will be mothers and such. And then one day, after I'm once again all like, it's hilarious, this happens every single time, the
Hold on.
TSA agent goes, oh, that's probably because that 5-pound cylindrical log of cheese looks exactly like a log of C4. And then I realized that for a good 2 years, I've been getting pulled out because TSA thought I was trying to carry logs and bricks and pounds of C4 on the planes. I was so confused why my TSA pre-check got revoked. Story 23. Not airport personnel. I am the daughter of a man who travels for work. As a child, my dad was selling a medical instrument that was prostate related. I was around 8 or 9, so I didn't understand what the equipment did, but I know it addressed concerns relating to butts. My dad had fake butts mounted on wood to demonstrate how to use the equipment.
Pardon?
He would travel with the fake butts to pitch the
Oh,
instrument
this is
and show
stop. I
doctors
can't
how to
really
use
go
it.
anymore.
He would travel
Can you
regularly
replay?
with multiple fake mounted butts. I'm not sure how often he was stopped, but I know he was relieved when he got a promotion.
pardon, this
and
might be- I
didn't
think this
have
is
to
a
travel
drop.
with the butts anymore. Story 24.
How
Some of
deep
my
is
golden
this thing?
findings after almost 5 years in service. A 4-foot-long wooden dong carving, surrounded by little dongs with legs just a couple weeks ago. Strap-ons are common things. A bag filled with chicken in a
Put that in.
can. 4
Turn
men with
back.
little birds tied to his ankles. one of those adult dolls that looked like a
Well, is there a
5-year-old
staircase? Hold
Japanese
up, gonna
girl,
check if there's
and
a
there will be
staircase.
an illegal gun, real or
No,
not,
no.
at least once every 3 months.
There was nothing
Oh,
like a
also
staircase.
7 kilos of Cuban cigars, a real golden crown, and I once stopped an attempt to smuggle a big bag of various gemstones valued at around $30,000.
Wait, oh,
My
hold
officer
on.
also once
Oh,
handled
never
a
mind,
case of
there's
a drugged
there's
little
divot
baby
in
in
here.
a duffel bag and living grenades. Story 25. Apart from the adult toys and surplus store grenades, here's a few. A human skull, legal to buy online by the way, snakes in pantyhose in someone's pants, a loaf of bread full of weed, a garden statue of a hedgehog, 2 crystals with wires wrapped around it and connected to a motorcycle battery. Apparently it can cure cancer, lots of car parts, like a small car engine in checked luggage, dental equipment, like the whole office in checked and
When was that,
carry-on
Away?
luggage, one adult toy that had a handle like a sword and it was so dense, this one stuck
It's
in
a
my
long
mind.
hallway
It
from-
looked like one of those
Yeah.
Roman Legionnaire swords. And finally, a crack pipe made out of a Coke can. The guy started screaming it was my crack pipe and I was framing him.
Ah,
He was so
good
confident
guy.
about it, I almost believed him and turned myself in. Men who have sold/donated sperm and gave permission for the child to contact you at 18. What is your story? My younger brother donated multiple times unbeknownst to me. Years later, my wife and I did Ancestry.com to get an idea of how diverse our backgrounds were, and wham! Started getting contacted by lots of people, over a dozen, saying we were close relatives. At first, I was confused and asked the early
Well, hold
ones
on,
about
there's
their
bookshelves
parentage.
or
They all
some
had
sort
similar
here.
stories.
Hold on.
Single mom went to a sperm bank. Didn't take long to guess what happened. Call my brothers and ask. Younger one fessed up and said yes, he went multiple times. In fact, they told him he had to stop donating because there was a statistical probability his child could meet and date another one. I asked if it was okay if I gave them his contact. He was fine with it. The weird thing is, they all had his face. Like, one look at them and it was obvious who their father was. Anyway, this went on for a couple of years, and they all connected with each other. Seems they're over 20 now, probably more. He has met a couple of them, but it was all casual. The whole thing is super weird to the rest of the family to have all these close relatives who are somehow part of the family, but then again, not really.
There's something
We now have
here.
a Discord.
Hold on.
Check out the server in
There's
the link in the description.
maybe something
Story
here?
2. I was a donor, and when this happened to me, it was okay. 4 separate offspring at various times over the course of about 6 months contacted me. All just as they turned
Another.
18
Oh,
and
hold on.
records were
Maybe,
opened.
maybe, maybe,
It was
maybe
cool for me
found
to see
something.
pictures
Something
of
right
them
here.
and see how much they looked like me. It was also good to hear the stories from their parents.
Yeah, mate.
How I helped them conceive
And
a
another
much-needed
question
child,
mark.
which I really
Mystery.
appreciated. But that was all. A few nice, polite
Yeah.
emails were exchanged, some kindnesses, and then we stopped emailing. I didn't want or expect more. I'm just glad to know they existed, and that they got to connect with their biological heritage. I suppose, as far as the donor system estimates, I have a lot more out there, but I expect that these are the only ones that will contact me, since I assume most of them will want to do it as soon as they turn 18. And all of my donations happened within an 18-month span. What happened in that 18-month span to make OP donate so many times? Was he just feeling like particularly ready at that time? He's like, yeah, I'll just contribute. Or was it just like a practicality
this is
thing,
the
like,
staircase
do
to
it
go back
anyway.
up.
Story 3. I was donor
Another
conceived.
question mark.
I took a DNA test. His natural-born daughter took a DNA test.
Oh,
So
yeah.
neither of
Right
us
here.
gave permission. There are 28 siblings so far. It was quite a shock. I wasn't expecting it and didn't know. I was 38. I've met the donor and most of the half-siblings. He's a cool guy. I think it's eerie
we
how I
went
see
this
many of
way.
my mannerisms in him and the other siblings. I know there's a wide range of emotions for people who experience this sort of thing, but for me, it was generally positive. Story 4. Obligatory not me, but I don't think I'll get another chance to tell the story. An
But that's the way
has an
up,
uncle who donated
pretty
sperm
sure.
back in the 90s. At some point, he started
No,
reaching out to
over
the
here.
parents of his
Oh,
biological
yeah, I see,
children
yeah.
to see if they wanted to meet their biological dad. And now, every summer, he flies out to all the children who wanted to be in contact to Yosemite, California, for a week of camping. I remember the first and only time I went, I was shocked to know that at least 10 of his
Options
children
are
come
left or
every
right.
year
Which
from all
way
around the
do you want to
US
go?
just to spend
Oh,
time
is
with
that-
him for
is
a
that
week.
all? Hold on,
Apparently,
there
the year I
might
went
be-
with him was also the year that another one of his biological children got in
Oh,
contact
slightly
with him
more
for the
right-
first
oh, hold
time,
on.
and spent the week out near
I found a
Yosemite
doorway
with all her
here.
half-brothers and sisters. I don't
We go
keep in
here, I
contact
guess.
with the uncle or my ex anymore, but I can assume that
I
more
guess
of his
it's
children
right
have
here.
contacted him each year so they can spend time getting to know their biological dad. I do wonder if there's like a sense of power that comes with this, right? Like the guy is there, he's surrounded by these people, and he's like, yes,
Well, there's a hole, but we
I
don't
guess
fall
thinking about it
through.
Now, that would be true for any large family reunion
don't fall
type thing,
through.
huh?
Yeah, I
Story
literally
5.
can't. I'm
I was
in the
approached
middle,
by
but
my
I
longtime
can't.
childhood friend, and she asked if I would be a donor for her and her wife.
Yeah.
I agreed, and they asked if I would be okay with being in their life, to take pictures and be around so the child knows who I am, and also knows I'm the biological donor, just so there's
So
no
some
questions
sort of
down the
whale.
road. I agreed, and it's been awesome so far. He just turned 2, and he's a tornado. I warned them, but he's loved more than most children.
Free?
Coming from a background in psych, I figured developmentally it would be easier to be labeled as a friend and not an unknown. Questions of turmoil of where did I come from, etc. I guess we'll see. Story 6. So I'm not the dad, but a kid. So my biological dad donated and gave permission to be identified. Didn't even have to be after 18. In counting, because we're not sure if we found all of us yet, there are
Guess we'll go here this way, I guess.
siblings, all his kids.
I
My full
guess
sister
we're
and I
fine to
didn't know
kill.
we were donor babies until I was a freshman in college.
That's kind of
after
cool
a
seeing
senior
like
in high school.
everything else
It was
later.
a few more years before we found out the scope of our family. As such, I never got to meet the man as he passed away in 2018. But I've been getting to know my half-siblings and I'm sad to have missed him. He apparently engaged in annual reunions and was interested in getting to know all of the kids if they and their families were open to it. We all support each
I'll
other
test it.
basically by default,
Nothing.
even though we didn't grow up together. What's even wilder about him is that he got national news coverage for something besides his giant flock of kids. The guy got married to a woman the day he met her as a competition to be his bride in the Mall of America. It was apparently a heartfelt story, and the two of them had a 20-something-year marriage with 4 kids that they raised themselves. The Mall of America even has a plaque with his name on it now, so you can go find him if you really try. The man was a weirdo, but in the best way. He was kind and generous with his time and really seemed to care about all of his kids, or at least the ones he knew about. Story 7.
A
I'm
window
donor
of
child,
some
but
sort.
the man didn't give permission for me to get in touch. I've always been a bit curious, particularly as now we do the same job, but more about any family history of disease which might be relevant,
Kitty over here,
although I assume
over
nothing
here.
major or he wouldn't have been allowed to donate. I think I would have reached out when I was 19 or 20, but I wouldn't anymore if I had the choice. I call the donor my father, but my dad will always be the one who raised me, and played with me, and loved me, even though he died when I was young. He's the one that really matters. But I am grateful for those who donate, enabling my family to have a child without a
Here's a
genetic
table.
illness. I've never considered this as a reason for getting a donation. Having a
Well, we
genetic
need to get
illness
this
that you don't
a
want
way
to
we
pass
can
on
get
your
up
child.
there,
That's really
sort
smart
of.
and must be a super hard decision for the parents, so big props. Story 8.
That's-
Mine may seem awkward. My
That's
mom's
not
friends
the
are
same place I've been
lesbians.
to.
10 years
I
ago,
think I
all
know
came
where
to
you
me
can
and asked
start
if
here.
I would donate. Why the hell not? Lovely people and desperate
here,
to be
over here.
parents. After the
I
second
know there's 2 of them over here.
Easter insemination,
Oh,
they
okay.
got pregnant. They have a beautiful little girl. I went on to have my own 2 daughters, and they came to me 2 years ago and asked again. This time it was a bigger decision, but my partner
there's a
knew
way, I
the full
guess,
story and was more than happy to allow us to try a second time, which was again successful. They had a boy this time. We've spoke extensively, and we all have no issue with them knowing I'm the donor. My kids will also know when the time comes. We agreed that we would run off the whole I have no input other than biological. Obviously, we won't be able to stop
I
the
guess
whole
he,
who's
yeah.
my father, but we have agreed that when the time does come, they will be
There's
sat
2
down with my
customers
own
over
2
here.
children as well, and then
There's
explained
a
that
whole
the
way
situation
there.
of I'm not a father to them and it was purely to allow them to have children, and that they aren't missing out by having 2 mums rather than a mum and a dad. It's hard to type out, but I'm sure you guys will get it. Thankfully, they look nothing like my own children. That could be awkward, considering we live in the
There
same
should be one in
neighborhood.
this room
Also,
right
I
here.
have no attachment or need to be anything to these children. May seem
here.
horrible to say, but this was my gift to 2 amazing parents. And
I don't
they're
know what
doing
we're
fantastic.
doing, what
I don't
it
need to be
is,
there for
but
them. Story
I
9.
know.
I have a friend who was raised by 2 lesbians but conceived by a turkey baster party, which, if you don't know what that is, I didn't either. Apparently, sometime in the early 80s, a bunch of LGBTQ folk wanting kids all met somewhere in a New York apartment. The men, as there are multiple, all nutted into a receptacle of some kind, perhaps a turkey baster. And that product was then inserted into one of the female partners in the hopes that they would get pregnant. His mom used to share this story
Yes,
with
it's
us
true.
a lot while under the influence as we grew up. At some point when he hit about 23, he did
Yeah,
in fact
you
attempt
okay
to
there,
find his
Ewa?
biological dad, because he needed to know some things about his genetic health that could really only be answered if he knew the other half. And what we came to was essentially a who knows, thanks to this. Apparently, it would have been possible to maybe get a genetics test,
yeah,
but also, apparently, at that point in history at least, a very good chance that incredibly expensive route doesn't actually lead anywhere. So he's fine just not knowing, at least the last time I heard from him. Story 10. Somewhat related, but I've got a brother from another mother and have a happy story to share. My dad had a kid with a lady in the 80s. She didn't want to keep it, and he didn't want to be a single dad, so he was put up for adoption and they split up and go about their days. There's likely a lot more to the story, but I've only ever been told my dad's side, so I'll leave it at that. Fast forward 30 years.
Yeah, sorry,
My dad has
machine
settled
went
down
down the
and has
wrong
a family
hole.
of
Went
5
down a
kids with
hole.
my mom. He gets a call from a non-profit asking if he'd provide his information if his kid wants to reach out. He does and goes about his day. Fast forward a few months, he gets a call from his son, initially wanting to learn about possible health causes and curiosity.
We're outside
he ended up
of
getting
a
adopted
tunnel.
by an amazing family and is doing very well
We're
for himself. He
outside.
wants to come to town and meet my
Graveyard
dad.
Earth,
His dad has
probably
had
yes.
awkward conversations with his
But
kids
yeah.
explaining that we have another brother and he was coming to visit. Note, a running insult when we were growing up was calling each other adopted, which pissed Dad off a lot. Fast forward another 2 weeks, there was a graduation this weekend, and we're having all the family over, so it was a good time for him to come up and meet the guy. Great person. Hit it off and is still close with all of the brothers. Everything worked out pretty well, all things considered. He's a spitting image of Dad and a really great friend. His parents are amazing people as well. Really, really lucky to have him in my life. Story 11. I'm not a donor, but I was donor conceived, along with my sister, same donor. I had a great dad and never had any desire to find out who my donor was, but I was always curious about siblings, especially when I learned there's no legal limit on how many children you can father when you donate sperm in the US. Well, one 23andMe test later, and the first result on the top of the list is a half-sister in Texas. We get in contact and realize we have a lot in common, and it sparked a fire in her to find more siblings. She took an ancestry DNA test, and on the top of that list was a man in California, listed as father. She got in touch with him right away. Turns out he's a fantastic guy. He was adopted himself and also got into contact with his birth mom as an adult, so he had been on our side of the situation and was very open and willing to talk. His wife has been super supportive of us meeting too. He has 3 organically made kids of his own. I was especially ecstatic to learn that I'm a big sister. Plus, we've since found 3 more half-siblings who've all been very cool and excited to find each other. At this point, I've met all but one of them in person. And I got to meet my biological grandmother too. Story 12. My sister and her wife just had a baby girl. My sister-in-law carried the baby.
Guess we head back now, I guess, or something?
I'm a 25-year-old grad student who hopefully will have kids one day, but wasn't planning on having any right now. I didn't have any strong feelings for yes or no at the beginning. With the new prevalence of adult content, both actual adult content and in shows like Game of Thrones, I was a little concerned people would feel like it was wrong. Like, the child might have to deal with people telling her it's gross. Or I would have to deal with it when trying to start my own family. Some Google searching told me that other couples had asked for siblings to be donors, and that was enough for me to feel like it was normal. I think there was one where a couple used a turkey baster to do the insemination. Don't do that. Work with a bank. Also, when I went to the bank, I was jerking it in a cement room sitting on a folding chair. It's a weird experience.
Oh, now I know where this is at. This is where we just came in.
The I found for doing it was that the child would look like my sister. We're 6 years apart, but there are photos of us together that people said we could have been twins. Parents should love their children regardless of appearance, but currently, oh, she looks just like you, is such a frequent interaction and source of pride. Nearly every other parent gets to enjoy that. My sister should too. Amazingly, the baby looks exactly like my sister. It's even more obvious when comparing the pictures of the baby to pictures of my sister as a baby. It makes my sister really happy, and that makes me happy. My donorship is a weirdly open secret. When the child grows up, she will know, because not sharing the information can be harmful. There will be different age-appropriate explanations whenever necessary. My mom shared the information with a few of her friends, which sort of upset me. It's still personal and they don't need to know. Aside from my doctor and therapist, I haven't shared this information with anyone. Until now. If anything I said is strange, this is one of the first times I'm saying it out loud. I'm posting this on my alt account so no one can find it when randomly looking through my comment history. I guess I still have to work on being more comfortable with the information. Story 13. I started donating almost exactly 10 years ago when I was living on the West Coast. I had only been exposed to the concept of donating through movies when one would go for gas money on road trips.
Oh yeah, we're back in the first area.
It wasn't like that at all. It took over a month and many unpaid
we're back in the first area.
To become a donor. They did a very thorough screening process to make sure your sperm was viable and would survive the freezing process. Then they tested it to make sure
how did we end up back here?
Known diseases that could be passed down. After all of that, I started donating 2 to 3 times a week for a few months until I ended up moving across the country to go to grad school. I said I was open to being contacted once they were 18 and was excited about that prospect when I'd be in my 40s. One day, I randomly logged onto Facebook and checked my messages. I had a message request from a random person in Australia, which just seemed like spam. I'm a citizen of the USA but was living in Germany at the time. Instead of immediately deleting the message, I read it and a lady explained that curiosity got the better of her, and she tried to find the donor of her 2 kids. She used the little information that she knew about the donor and slowly linked it to me. I even had throwback photos on my profile that looked like her kids. It was a match. I wasn't upset, but rather excited, as I now knew more information about who and how I had helped. That was 2 years ago, and now we communicate a couple times every year to update each other about what had happened in our lives. It's really exciting to see the growth of the 2 offspring that I helped produce. They're both under 10 and they know who I am, so they'll be able to grow into the understanding of our different than normal relationship. My clinic told me that I had birthed 7 children in total, so 5 are still unknown to me at this time. Overall, it has been a good process, and I'm really happy that I took part in it. Would do it again, and I still get emails from the clinic telling me that if I'm ever back in the area, to consider becoming a donor again. OP, I think you mean fathered, not birthed. Just a small little nitpick there, but it does change the meaning of things. Story 14. Okay, so this story doesn't completely fit, but this might be a good place to share. I always knew that my mom had fertility issues and did IVF in order to have me, but I didn't know I was a sperm donor baby until about 3 years ago. It was a surprise to everyone in my family. Wild to not know for that long.
Did I do something wrong?
No, you didn't. You're a
I've always been
princess,
interested in genealogy, and got an ancestry DNA kit from a relative for my birthday a little over 3 years ago. I was excited to finally get my results back and start building my family tree. However, when I got the results back, I found that I matched up with a lot of my mom's relatives that had done the test, but none of my dad's. I tried to shrug it off as the technology not being good or specific enough, but I couldn't explain all these individuals who were popping up as a strong match as a half-sibling. Eventually, one of them messaged me and informed me that they all had the same father,
You
who was
probably
a
a sucky
sperm
princess
donor,
knowing
and that
you
they were so
were.
happy to find another half-sibling. I was a little freaked out, but eventually confronted my parents
You
about it,
sure
and they were
about that?
completely shocked. My father had supposedly given a sperm sample for the IVF, and they had never even considered using a donor. Eventually, my mom tracked down some paperwork from the IVF clinic they used, and we did some research and found out that the clinic closed shortly after my birth, after being involved in a few different lawsuits relating to a mix-up of IVF samples. At that point, they had been closed for over 2 decades, so there wasn't really much we could do. Everyone always commented that I had features that matched my father's, so I never even imagined that this could be possible. Luckily, my family took it in stride, and it
time
hasn't
about
changed
me?
anything. On top
What
of
about
that,
me?
I have 25
What's
siblings
the
and
daytime for
counting
you?
who are all
It's more
really
afternoon.
cool, wonderful people. We have a
But
Facebook
yes, I need
group
to
and
feed
are
my
hoping to
cat
meet
in
up
a
sometime
second.
soon. It's also been cool to see nature versus nurture in action. A lot of us have pretty much the same eyes, noses, and foreheads, and work in similar
2:47
fields or have similar interests.
in the morning.
Some of
Yeah,
us
it's
even
all
went to
late
the
for
same
you, little
colleges
one.
and never
2:48
even knew it.
in the
I've
morning.
chatted with my biological father online,
Early
and he's
morning.
a really cool guy. He's
So
incredibly
we're on
kind and
roughly
personable,
the
and
same
we share
time
many
frame.
personality traits and interests. Things seemed pretty crazy for a
Yeah,
while,
in the
but I'm
US.
happy to know and to have gotten to know
Yes.
my half-siblings, and he's been happy to get to know us and learn
Can't
about our
tell which
lives. I'm
direction
surprised
to
that
get
changed to nothing in
over
the family.
from.
To be completely
I
honest,
moved to
maybe I'm just
Texas
cynical,
all
but
the
I
way
feel
up
like that could
to the north.
destroy
We're
someone's
both
concept
on
of
the
a
same
family,
time frame,
depending
so.
on how they viewed it in the
Yeesh.
first
Yeah.
place. Story 15.
It
My
doesn't
husband is a
depend
competitor,
on.
but I'll tell our story. I'm very
It's
close
just
to my
a
second
different
cousin, who is a
state
married
we're on in.
lesbian. When she told me the amount of coin they were about to drop for one vial of frozen sperm with a 50% chance of it working, I talked to my husband about donating to them. It was a group effort, spent about a year tracking cycles and popping over to make a deposit a few times a month. We were all about to call it when she finally got pregnant, and now has a 3-year-old. We both drew up wills and prepared for anything to happen. We will get custody of the child. He has given permission for her to contact him at any time, and we see her as cousins. But she doesn't know because there's no
Look at
way
all
to
that
get her
lit
away
up
from her
area.
other mom. I'm sure when the child is old enough to comprehend, she will be told, and she can do whatever with that information. There's no expectation, and honestly, he was just happy to be able to help them out. I'm super proud of him. Story 16. So this is actually a kind of funny story, but with an amazing twist ending. This is also not me, but a friend of mine. So my friend
Yeah,
had donated
I
about
just
a
colored
decade
that whole
ago.
area
Fast
in
forward a few
colorful.
years and he meets this really nice girl. Turns out she was once in a lesbian marriage, conceived a child via donor, but then realized she's actually bi. Her wife divorced her soon after. She ends up chatting with my friend and they hit it off. The first time he goes over to her place, he notices that her kid looks a lot like him. They did a DNA test and turns out the donor for the kid was him. He just met his own son. Anyway, they've been together ever since and are actually engaged right now and pregnant with what is now their second kid. No way. I refuse to believe this is possible. The odds of that are so insanely low. If it's true, which I'm not sure if it is, but if it's true, that's amazing. And is possibly the purest display of fate I have ever heard of. Flight attendants and pilots have read it. What are some things that happen mid-flight that only the crew are aware of? There's a special frequency called GUARD that all aircrafts are supposed to monitor. It's for emergencies. or for when an aircraft ends up on a wrong frequency and the controllers need to get contact with them to change them to the right one. It's full of pilots meowing at each other and people accidentally asking for gate assignments and making other radio calls.
We now have a Discord. Check out the server in the link in the description.
Story 2. Pilot here, late to the party as usual, but sometimes the passengers may be having a nice, quiet flight in the back, while the pilots are up front dodging thunderstorms and yelling their heads off. We will not only transport dead bodies, but also live transplants like hearts and lungs. I particularly like the live transplants because we get to cut to the front of the line for takeoff and we get all the shortcuts to our destination. Tip for those who get motion sickness, try not to move your head around. Pilots move with their eyes instead of their heads to look at the instruments in the flight deck. Also try to sit in a seat over the wing. This area of the plane doesn't rotate as much during climbs and descents. Flight attendants can't do pilots' jobs, but pilots can't do flight attendants' jobs for sure. We aren't hired for our people skills. Don't take off your shoes to go to the bathroom. People pee on the floor all the time. People do that? They take their shoes off to go to the bathroom in like a public place? I better not see any comments in this video saying that you do that. That's so weird. Stop it. Get some help. Story 3. I've got an original one for you all. There's a radio frequency we are required to monitor. It's called GUARD. It's for emergency use and is designed for maydays and for aircraft that may have lost radio connection, or to relay messages from aircraft to other aircraft, etc. Every day this frequency is abused. You will hear hundreds of professional aviators meowing, yelling obscenities at each other, and making fun of one airline or another. Oftentimes, what will start it is some poor guy accidentally transmitting his PA announcement to passengers on the GUARD frequency, followed by the very mature outbreaks for about 5 to 10 minutes.
Someone need to change
When the first story mentioned meowing, I thought that was like code for something. I didn't really question it. And then this one just reaffirmed that, do pilots really meow over this frequency? Story 4. A former teacher told us a story that fits the question. Every year he would make trips to Europe that were for an educational experience, or related to the subject he taught in one way or another.
I just rained out
it was
for
just
a
an
bit
amazing way to
and
spend 2 weeks in Europe.
I was meant
One
to
year
be
he took a
doing
student's
a
brother
drawing
with, since he
stream.
needed an extra person to have the minimum amount of required students. After a 10-hour flight, the flight attendant walks up to him and asks if said brother was a part of his group. He said yes. Apparently, on the flight, he stopped the flight attendant and asked her to bang with him in the bathroom. She denied, but he continued to ask several more times. It reached a point to where she no longer felt anywhere near comfortable. She asked my teacher if she could notify the authorities and have him sent back to the States. He agreed. There were no immediate flights back home, so a distant relative of his had to be contacted. He stayed with a relative he had never even met for an entire weekend. He was then put on a flight back home the following week. Story 5. Flight attendants don't get paid on the ground, only flying hours are paid. We are slave labor on the ground, and duties are continually added to our unpaid work time because the company knows they don't have to pay us. We show up 2 to 3 hours before we even start getting paid, and some days we will work up to 14-hour days and only get paid for 5 or 6 of them. It should be illegal. Please be kind when you are boarding the plane and getting all pissy about your bags, etc. The flight attendant is a volunteer while she is helping you on the ground. She is essentially doing you a favor. Story 6. This started off with us blissfully unaware, ended with mild pant crapping. I was flying to France in one of those planes with the TV screen up front to show the flight path and where you currently are. I was just about to fall asleep when the captain asked over the PA if there was a doctor on board and if they could go to seat number. I knew this was bad. The flight path changed to Canada and we had to make an emergency landing. We were stuck there for 2 hours. When we finally got to France, his entire row was quarantined off. I have no idea what the frick happened. Story 7. Ex-airline employee here. Often you have someone on board with terrible body odor.
I have
set the
an
temperature in one
imposter
end of
though,
the
so
cabin
it's
hotter and
very
it localizes the
close.
smell to one part of the plane. If you see coffee filter bags hanging anywhere, it's because someone smells like garbage on the plane. Flight attendants often talk about the Hawkeye and 23B or whatever season. Pilots screw around a lot up front. They'll take pictures, post on Facebook, watch movies. Automation has taken over a lot of the work on long flights. Story 8. I was only a month or 2 out of IOE, initial operating experience at my first airline job, flying right seat in a regional jet. I had just come back from the bathroom when the captain pointed that several flight instruments on his side had failed, and he had reverted to using data from my side. Basically told his main flight display to start using data from the second independent system. Soon, however, that went bad too. The autopilot disconnected.
I'm gonna have to find somebody who's smarter than me to work this because I tried so many different ways and I'm not able to.
Called an IESI, Integrated Electronic Standby Instrument, if memory serves. We declared an emergency, asked ATC to point us in the direction of better weather, and tried to figure out what the hell was happening. Icing on both primary pilot tubes, maybe. Though that shouldn't happen, they are heated. In any case, we ended up making a perfectly safe landing after a diversion, and the passengers never had any idea that for a few minutes, I was really concerned that things were about to turn very, very bad, and that we were down to our emergency backup gauge. Story 9. Not an airline pilot yet, just got hired by my first airline and start classes next month, but I've been a pilot for 6 years. I primarily teach Chinese airline pilots how to fly, but I've done some passenger operations and business aircraft on the side. First of all of the comments about pilots making cat sounds and chewbacca noises is 100% true. Also, whenever someone leaves an area and switches frequencies, they'll yell, "See ya!" And then a dozen other pilots will key up saying, "See ya," one after another. We also enjoy talking crap about people who say, "With you," "Got him on the fish finder," "Any traffic, please advise," and "Tree and fight." Also, the things that scare passengers don't faze the pilots one bit. We don't give a crap about turbulence or having to do a go-around. The things I don't like are things you generally won't know about. Thunderstorm dodging, microburst alerts, ice, maintenance issues, etc. The more I hear about this guard frequency, the more I want to just listen in over the course of a day. It's always hilarious to hear about trained professionals who you assume are, very professional because they're doing an important job. Like, you'd think they're serious, basically. But no, they're just screwing around like the rest of us at work. Story 10. Former flight attendant here. Landing gear got stuck on descent. We flew in circles for ages, just
they're
waiting
gonna
to see if we
discontinue
needed
the
to crash
upgrades.
land or not. Luckily, the gear eventually came down. Passengers never knew
next
something was
year.
wrong. One time I accidentally spilled coffee creamer on a bald dude's head while he was sleeping during service.
to a class
Myself
3S
and everyone
or
around him
class 3
silently agreed to say
because the
nothing.
class 2 is
He
going
looked
to
as if a
discontinue
bird pooped
the
on his head.
upgrades and in the
I still feel
software.
guilty about it.
Can be
Never drink the
insufferable.
coffee. I have never
That's
seen
it.
those machines clean. Story 11. Not a pilot or a flight attendant, but once I was flying to Chicago and we had some mechanical
So
problems.
basically, it's going to
Sounded like
become
an
a
engine
useless
went out. The
headset.
pilot
You
got
can't
on the
use
mic
it.
and said that the
And
reverse
whereas
thrusters
you
went
hook
out
up
in
to a
one of the
PC.
engines and we needed to make an unscheduled stop somewhere in BFE. The plane landed,
That's
but
what
took
I
a really
heard.
long time to stop.
Because
We
I
were
was
all put on
reading
another
an
plane going to Chicago and
news
were told to
about
just
it.
grab an open seat. I later asked a pilot friend of mine
Well,
about
to be
that.
honest,
I
yeah,
wondered
like,
why a problem
a
with the
good
reverse
5 years
thruster in an
into
engine
it,
would be
regardless.
cause to make an emergency landing. He told me that it wasn't. The reverse thrusters
It's
get
because
pressurized
the
when the
hardware
landing
is
gear goes down, so
unable
they
to
can't be
keep
used
up.
mid-flight. There is nothing serious about them going
Doubt.
out that would require an emergency stop. He then told
Because
me
you
that
got
the
4
pilot lied to
gigs
us,
of
as it was probably
RAM
something
instead of 8
much more
gigs.
serious like the engine going out, just like I thought. Story 12. Here's a story about a weather
Yet the
phenomenon I
newer
saw only
headset's
once
lesser
in
quality.
6,000 hours of airline
I'm
flying.
not
We had a
really,
severe
but
icing
it's
encounter with
more,
SLD. Super cool
it's
to
more
large droplets that none of our
upgradable
official training
ability
covered.
to give you
The
more
only two people
access
who
to
knew how close we came
to
to an
more
incident
frames.
slash accident were
And the
myself
Quest
and
3 and the
first
3S are
officer. It was
exact
a
the
gorgeous
same,
spring day in Central
but the only
California.
difference is
As
the
we were
Quest
climbing through
3S and the
15,000
Quest
feet
2
through
are the
Bakersfield
same
on the way to
build.
LAX. We had departed
You
FAT
know,
and my
like
first
the
officer
Quest
was
2,
hand-flying the EMB 120.
Quest 2,
This
the
was a
head
little
straps
unusual,
and
but he was
stuff
partially bored,
are
had
exactly
been
the
away on
same for the
vacation,
Quest
and was feeling
3S.
out the plane since we had just swapped aircrafts. No two planes fly exactly the same, especially due to
And
shifting passenger loads,
The
fuel, and
Quest 3
baggage.
itself is
We had flown
different.
several months together in the
The
prior
only
year, so
same
I
is
knew
the
he was an
Quest 2
extremely
and the
competent
Quest
airman.
3S are
In
exactly the
this case, we
same,
were lucky that the
the
autopilot
build
wasn't on because it
build
would have masked a very
build
dangerous
setup.
situation. What we
The
didn't
only
know was
difference
that we were
between the
flying
Quest
into an
2 and the
area of
Quest
severe
3S,
icing,
the
which turned out to
CPU,
be a freak
battery,
microclimate.
and
We are
hardware.
20-something minutes into the flight, and the FO declares
The
something is
Quest
wrong.
3S,
The
you
controls are
have
getting
8
sluggish.
gigs of
I immediately
RAM,
check our airspeed, and it's about
and
60
you got a
kps. Slow,
Snapdragon
but our pitch and power are normal.
855,
The FO started to lower the nose and said, I don't think
and
we
you
can
got
continue to
another,
climb. We were slowing through
I mean,
160 kps,
200
but should be above
megahertz
180.
of battery
If
powered,
we get near
extra battery
120,
powered.
we lose control of the aircraft. What the hell? The OAT, outside air temperature, was -10 Celsius, but
And
the
the
sky was
Quest
totally
2
clear.
has 4
I lean
gigs of
forward and look
RAM,
at the wiper blades and see a
a
solid half-inch of ice coating
675
them,
Snapdragon
and flowing
CPU
slosh
is
crusting up
about
above the
slower
window trim.
than the
None of this was visible from
875.
a normal seated position. Oh crap. I throw all the anti-ice switches on and start to bring the props forward. They were in partial cruise power, which is a lower RPM. In the Brasilia, it
I
was
don't
normal
know,
to bring the
it's
props
been
back several
loyal.
times during the climb to
This
reduce
tech's
cabin noise
been
slash
loyal to me
vibration, as well as
regardless.
save
It's
on wear and
been
combat
durable
pilot
enough
fatigue.
to survive
All of
4
which
or
does
5
not
years,
degrade
so
climb
I'm
performance,
happy with that.
except in icing. As soon as I touched the
Well, you
condition
can
levers
spend a
to
little
increase
more money
RPM,
on getting
the
yourself
whole
a
plane started
PC.
shaking
You can hook
violently.
your class up
Damn,
to,
ice
or
on
your
the
rank your
props,
class up
it's
to
bad.
Steam.
If I try
And
to
then
bring
you'll
them
be
up, I
able
could
to have
damage the
more
aircraft.
access to
Had
more
these two
stuff.
fatal accidents in mind, ASA
Just like she's
2311
doing.
and ASA 592. I craned my neck to look at the spinner and it was frosted in white powder.
She had the Quest,
Low RPM,
she had
ice,
a
and
Quest
low
2 and then
airspeed
she
are a
bought Quest
dangerous
3S and
combo.
found
I
out they're
advise
both a
ATC that we
shit.
are in severe
And then
icing,
she
do not
hooked up
continue
to
the climb,
PC and
and
there's a lot
need
more
an
by it.
immediate descent. On a perfect, calm day, this was a shock to the controller. While he was pondering, we had already started descending to 14,000 feet.
It's stuff a PC, you can probably be able to have some more fun. Be able to see more stuff and more options which you never seen on Crush.
Bolted to the skin for this reason. But I doubt any of the passengers
You know, the visor for hypnotize.
High-time pilots is they get used to every possible noise, smell, and
yeah, what's
sensation
on
the plane
PC?
can make, which can be crucial for good judgment. Years earlier,
And
I
the
could have avoided
shaders
smoking
and
the
stuff,
cockpit at night
it
over
would-
the Everglades had I trusted my nose prior to
stuff that the
takeoff.
Crush
Had
don't
my
see,
first officer
but
not
PC
been
can see.
flying, unlike Eagle
But PC is
4184,
like
having missed a
$1,500
full
friggin'
night's sleep, had it
dollars.
been after midnight on our 8th leg of the day,
Well,
had I not
because
put
the
two and two
hardware
together
and the
quickly,
struts can
we would
run
have had a
way more
roll upset and
heavier.
possibly bent the
And the
airframe
Crush
or
is not
torn the
able to
tail
keep
off
up, so
performing
they have to
recovery.
remove it
The icing happened
for
so fast and
splatter on
without
it.
warning that it
Because every
nearly
time they
exceeded our
use that
perception ability.
feature,
The
it
SLD
splatters
accumulation was
the
so
crust
rapid that the ice warning
because it
system never
frees up
detected
or
it.
stop
This
working
was
and
also a case
functioning.
where human beats automation. If the autopilot was on, it would have fought asymmetric force until it exceeded its design limitation, then failed, snapped off, and put us upside down in a spiral dive. Lucky for us, the first officer was busy flying and I was busy troubleshooting, which is how CRM, crew resource management, should work. Some people insist that automation can solve any in-flight emergency.
I'll be
Pilots
back.
are just switch monkeys, right? In this
Alright,
scenario,
take it
full
down.
automation could have
I'll be
led
right
to an
here.
accident.
I enjoyed
Julia
the
was a
one.
fantastic aircraft.
And hopefully
It
come
would have
back.
made an amazing medium bomber in World War II, and I
So
truly
y'all be
trusted the
safe.
design.
I'll
It was
be back
rugged,
in a
fast, and
second.
well engineered. However, it had a history of roll upsets. Trivia time,
Dragon,
tip to tip,
I'm
the
just
propeller
currently
blades are
getting
18
some
feet
Fino.
and produce tremendous gyroscopic force. Lesson for other
Y'all
pilots,
be
always
safe.
bring the
I'll
props
be
to
back.
full RPM prior to encountering icing, or if you suspect icing is in the area.
Sorry,
Not
Kitty, I'm
only does it
leaving you
help
alone for a
resist slash
temporary
shed
moment.
ice center, but full power is available when needed. This was not SOP, Standard Operating Procedure, or part of the QRH, Quick Reference Handbook at the time. In our defense, we had no way of detecting SLD. There were no PIREPs, pilot reports, visible moisture, or other indicators besides OAT. We also had no rationale to run the prop or wing boots prior to encountering ice. The entire event lasted less than 5 minutes, but it only takes a couple of minutes of inattention to endanger helpless passengers. Flying should be slightly stressful, even on clear weather days. This read like a full-on accident report. This is insanely detailed and, I feel like a lot of it went over my head. But I hope somehow listening to it was easier than reading it for comprehension. OP also mentioned a few other flight numbers that I didn't say because I felt like at some point it just became too much because, let's be real, you guys aren't gonna look it up. That was a lot of pilot jargon and, I hope you guys kept up. That being said, it's a great example of what the prompt is asking for, yeah? All these passengers probably had no idea that they were in real mortal danger and the pilot saved the day. So, good work, OP. Story 13. Flight attendant here. If someone acts like a major jerk mid-flight, we will have security meet you on the ground at your destination. We have limited resources available, so if you complain about wanting steak but we only have chicken left, there are literally 0 things we can do about it. There is only so much space we have to stock all the goodies. There may be major drama going on between crew members, but we do our best to hide it and give good customer service. I have literally cried behind a wall before because a crew member was being condescending and rude, and walked out into the cabin smiling afterward. We make fun of people for being rude, being inconsiderate of others, playing videos out loud, clipping toenails, eating salt-dried fish, and leaving the bones on the floor. People will literally ask us about mileage points and why they didn't get upgrades and why their bag got delayed, and how, oh no, they're going to miss their connection. If there is a major delay flying into a city, we literally hide in the galleys to avoid people asking us questions. If a passenger is rude to our face, we will crunch up the snack mix or cookie before handing it to them, essentially giving them a bag of crumbs. Story 14. Corporate pilot here. Passengers bang a lot in the cabin of the airplane. Often there are no curtains or doors between the cockpit and the cabin. Generally, when the back end of the plane is moving side to side or up and down through the air, and there is no known turbulence, the eye stays straight ahead. Also, we fly a lot of escorts. If your significant other travels on a private airplane often, ask who the other passengers are. Sounds like on these corporate flights, there are 2 cockpits. Haha! Story 15. My brother-in-law is a captain for a budget airline in the UK. Last year, he desperately needed to crap before landing. The only toilet on the aircraft is at the back of the plane. He strolled to the back and had his leisurely crap. Meanwhile, the first officer had to circle the airport 4 to 5 times as they couldn't land without the captain. They made an excuse, something like a backup queue for the runway, and eventually my brother-in-law strolled back down through the aircraft, leaving a stench behind him no one could have predicted, to rejoin the cockpit. Their delay backed up other aircraft landing that day, all because he needed to crap. Story 16. Flight attendant here. So many things that passengers would not love/understand if only they knew. From the cockpit, night sectors with minimum crew, we often have to take up extra pillows/blankets at request of the pilot so they can sleep. One pilot will stay awake at all times, but still disconcerting when you have to go up and see the captain snoring contentedly while tucked into his first-class Duna, while still in his reclined LHS seat. An occasion when I was a little concerned was a flight, within the last 5 years. I headed up to clear the flight deck, only to see large paper maps spread out over the instruments. Destination was new to both pilots, both fairly new to aircraft type, and they were just double-checking/discussing options. It was actually great CRM in establishing clear comms and planning, and they were using paper maps instead of iPads just to get a better/clearer picture. But it didn't reassure me walking into that. When seeing my look, the pilot's response was, "Don't stress, we just haven't been here before." I cleared the deck and got the hell out of there to let them do their thing, but did mention to my crew to make sure we do our checks especially thoroughly for that landing. Also, pilots are not hired for their people skills and are often not great at communicating with cabin crew, so quite often there will be snarkiness between flight deck and cabin crew. Also, differences between older, usually white, usually men in flight deck, and predominantly younger cabin crew, largely young women and gay men from all racial backgrounds due to need for language skills, can lead to personality clashes that the passengers will have no idea about. One of the airlines I work for still has issues with pilots not wanting gay male cabin crew to touch or prepare their food, and they'll often request only the female crew to bring up their crew meals, or only offer the jump seat in the flight deck for landing to prettier, younger female crew. Several flights I've been on had a palpable sense of loathing between cabin crew and pilots, passengers completely unaware. In terms of the cabin, again, lots happening that most passengers will never know about. Deaths, medical issues, drunk people getting cut off from drinking and being threatened with arrest on arrival, sexist, racist, homophobic behavior from passengers that is incredibly widespread. Most passengers, except those in direct sight of the issue, will have no idea. Some of this may be reported to authorities on landing, but for the most part, cabin crew just have to put up with it, and will just complain like crazy in the galley. And if you think you're getting attitude from your cabin crew, keep in mind they've probably been verbally abused at least once that day, possibly groped multiple times. Mainland China is a hated destination for crew because passengers, male and female, will just reach out and poke or grab a body part. Butt, thigh, boob, abdomen, whatever, to get your attention to get a drink or more food. And they've definitely been treated like utter crap by more than one passenger and possibly one of their colleagues, so be nice. Say please and thank you. And take off your freaking noise-canceling headphones when you can see we're speaking with you. Flight attendant pet peeve there. Predators who ran away from or ghosted on their previous lives as an adult, what was your motivation and what is your life like now? I grew up in a small town with 2 best friends. The 3 of us were extremely tight from elementary school through our early 20s, with a brief interlude when I left for college, but it completely fell apart about 11 years ago. One of my friends was engaged with a real psychopath that liked to toy with her, and it made her toxic, insecure, and paranoid as hell. He came over one Sunday to fix my old snowblower, which I was planning to sell since I had recently moved to an apartment. I offered him a beer and he took that as an opening and tried to kiss me/feel me up aggressively. I turned him down pretty harshly but decided not to tell my friend, who was pregnant at the time and easily upset. Well, he was pissed off, turned around and told her that I tried to seduce him. Long story short, she believed him, went into an emotional tailspin, tried to self-unalive, did not succeed, and lost the baby in the process. My other friend decided no smoke without fire, and believed him as well. Word got out around my small town pretty quickly, and it felt like everyone turned on me in a heartbeat. After all, my 2 best lifelong friends believed I had tried to seduce one's fiancée and caused her to lose her baby. It was deemed weird that I had invited him over to fix my snowblower in the summer, even though it was because I had moved into an apartment. Even the people who weren't 100% sure who to believe stayed the hell away. It didn't matter that he had always been an a-hole and a player, and their relationship and her emotional state had been on the rocks for ages. And I was ashamed too, wondered if I had led him on in some way. Devastated for my friend, couldn't hold my head up, started avoiding people. For 2 years, I was either angry or depressed all the time. I stopped going out, lost 30 pounds, I was 130 to start with, cried all the time. It never occurred to me to seek therapy. I also never seriously considered just standing up for myself, confronting him publicly, laying it all out in the open in one big blow-up. I finally got out because a college friend of mine happened to be road tripping across the country, paid me a visit, and they were shocked at how much I'd changed. He convinced me to go out with him. I did. Turns out the only good thing about having depression and never going out to socialize for almost 2 years, except for work, was that I had a healthy savings account. It's amazing how little you spend when you stop trying to keep up appearances for others. I told my landlord I was leaving the next day, paid extra 2 months and left the deposit in exchange for him getting rid of my stuff and having the apartment cleaned. I packed my bags and left with my friend. That road trip helped remind me that there was a much bigger and brighter world out there than my crappy little town and all the drama left behind. At the end of it, I crashed at his house for 3 months before I got back on my feet. Then I got my own place, got a steady job. I was really lucky with the latter. It was the height of the recession then and the job market was rough. He and I stayed friends for 2 more years before we started dating. We've been married now for 6. 4 or 5 years into my new life, I reached out to my other friend, not the one who lost the baby. In part for closure and part, if we're honest, due to morbid curiosity. She didn't want to talk. More than a decade of friendship and she still didn't want to hear me out. It was really at that moment that I was able to truly leave things behind. It seems surreal, but I rarely think of that part of my life anymore. My memories of that time aren't all that sharp. Those 2 years were a blur. Sometimes I wondered what happened to them, if my former friend came out okay and got away from that guy. But it doesn't keep me up at night. I look at my life now and I'm a happy person, stable, content in my life, secure. I can honestly say now that the whole thing hasn't left any lasting trauma on me, except that I doubt if I'll ever let myself have friendships that went that deep again. I have a lot of friends, a few that are closer than others, but none super close. Except for my husband, of course. And I don't miss it, really.
We now have a Discord. Check out the server in the link in the description.
Story 2. Born and raised in my hometown in Central Florida. About 19 years old and become addicted to drugs and other opiates. About 6 years of that life and doing whatever I could to not slip into withdrawals, I decided to move as far away as I could. With my mother's help, God bless her soul. Away from any drug dealers and all of my friends. First couple months were terrible dealing with withdrawals and the depression that comes with it. But once I finally got past that slope, I was able to finally hold down a job and become an average person. It's been about 2 years since I left home and am now rebuilding my credit, 650. Got myself a girlfriend who is pretty neat. I got to myself a pup that I love more than anything in this world, and overall just became a straight up normal person. And I'm extremely happy where I am in life now. I never thought I'd be on this side of addiction, and just being able to type this is crazy to me. Huge props to OP. Beating addiction is difficult, to say the least. I'm glad that OP had a good support system to help him move away from everything and just get on track. Story 3. I left because I was the black sheep. I'm the middle child of 5, and to my parents, the other 4 siblings were more successful, perfect, smart, and just plain better than me. When I met my successful spouse, they called me a gold digger, but at the same time they were glad I was his problem now. I don't even know what I did, really. I just drew the short straw on kids whose parents can deal with them, I guess. I think my parents only had kids for show, so when teen hormones made me a bit more of a handful than my siblings, they couldn't deal with it and wrote me off. Spouse had his own issues within his family, so 20 years ago we moved to another country, barely even said goodbye. We are wildly successful now and with teen kids of our own. Even hormonal difficult ones, and guess what, Pops? I still love them to death. Family back home has been through divorce and misery since then, but not us. We're doing well. We're still in love.
Sorry,
Life
I'm
is
almost
great.
done.
Truly, the best revenge is living well.
And if
Story
there's still
4.
people,
I worked at a
I'm
medical marijuana dispensary in the LA area for 6 years. One day it got raided, so that life came abruptly to an end. I had to figure out what my next move was, so I packed all my stuff into a storage locker and got on a Greyhound bus to Arizona. My mom moved to Phoenix a couple years prior, so I had a place to stay. Just no clue what I was going to do. Now I work doing inventory management and web design for a small business. I also got back into school, so I'm 1 semester away from transferring to ASU. I'm 27, but I finally made it to university. After all that time smoking weed and being the cool guy, it is very humbling to be in a town where you don't know anyone. Story 5. Let me start out by saying that I'm an idiot, and it's no wonder my life is what it is now. I abandoned my great cushy life to join the military. Left a beautiful girl, reconnected with another great lady and left her as well. Left a decent job where I was given a big pay raise and promotion. Left behind wonderful friends and family. Why? 9/11, really. Also, I was beginning to find modern life a bit empty and wanted to do something more meaningful. Then, after a decade, I left the military, left behind a great career, was respected, looked up to, and considered a rising professional in my field. They even considered me to be the top 10% of my branch. I had really found what I was looking for, but it also was incredibly stressful and lonely. But I was a freaking machine. Just give me coffee and cigarettes and I'll turn crap around for you. So why did I leave that behind? Well, it was about a decade already. Bin Laden was dead, I decided the job was done as far as why I joined, and I wanted to reconnect with my old life. So now here I am, completely lost in my place in the world. Still find modern life empty, struggling with PTSD, depression, anxiety, and all other sorts of crap that just kind of came into my life when my workaholic coping mechanism was gone, using weed to manage all that, freaking great by the way, and thinking about walking from this life altogether. I'm just frickin' lost, and everything seems empty. I hear this is unfortunately pretty common for people who are ex-military. The systems set in place, at least as far as I know in Canada and the US, to transition back to civilian life just aren't really what they need to be. It's hard. It's really, really hard moving from that regimented life back to a normal life where you have to find your own way. Story 6. I had an extremely high-paying job in the UK, but was working ridiculous hours when I was in the UK and would frequently get late-night calls that I needed to be in some random country the next day for an unspecified amount of time. I had a lot of cash built up, but no social life or friends because I just couldn't maintain them with the way I was working. As a child, my parents had decided to foster 2 brothers so that I wouldn't grow up as an only child. However, the kids they ended up fostering were clinical psychopaths, formally diagnosed, and ended up in long-term secure care. One of them escaped whilst on a day trip and went to the police claiming to be me and spinning a tale about how my father had been abusing me. Without checking the story, the police arrested my dad, and one of them decided to tell the neighbors what was going on. By the time I found out and got it sorted, the story had spread around the neighborhood and kept growing with the retelling. Eventually, my dad moved back to Barbados, which has a US-style healthcare system. Before his private healthcare could kick in, he came down sick and blew through all of his savings on medical care. I stepped in and also started blowing through my savings paying for his treatment and upgrading his home to be able to support him in a wheelchair. He eventually died from complications of the treatments, and I flew out to Barbados for the last time for his funeral. He had left very strict instructions for his funeral: no fancy coffin, cremation, and remains to return to the UK, to be alongside my mother. However, his family thought differently and kept hounding his partner trying to get a
New tab.
I was about to say, did I forget about my fork?